closed session. We should now adjourn the special meeting and begin the regular meeting.
Thank you. Okay, we will call to order to the regular meeting on May 5th at 6:12 p.m. We'll start by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilmember Fugazi.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have no invocation this evening. Moving on to the city clerk's reporting on the posting of the agenda.
Yes, Mayor, Council, the agenda was posted on Friday, May 2nd at 11:11 a.m.
Thank you very much. Item 1.5, roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Rocco.
Here.
Councilmember Klein.
Here.
Councilmember Fugazi.
Here.
Councilmember Hilton.
Here.
Councilmember Marks.
Here.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Here.
Mayor Bozo.
Here. Okay, moving on to item 1.6, orders of the day. As a reminder, each week during this process where we are reviewing the city moving from a citywide election to districts, we have been starting this portion of the meeting each time at 7 o'clock. So that'll happen regardless of where we're at on the agenda. Moving on to item 1.7, employee introductions, and we have none. And moving on to item number 2, ceremonial items, proclamations and awards. We have a few proclamations this evening. So what I would like to do is first read the proclamation for the retirement of Jason Smith. And then item 2.3 and 4 I will combine, and those will be proclamations for Affordable Housing Month and Building Safety Month. And I will have the folks from Community Development come up, and they will say a few words. And then if you don't mind, we will take a few pictures. I'll have council come down in front and take a few pictures. Okay, so the City of Gilroy Proclamation. Whereas Jason Smith has honorably served the City of Gilroy for over 19 years and has dedicated 30 years to a distinguished career in law enforcement. And whereas Jason began his law enforcement career with the Gilroy Police Department in March 2006, held numerous assignments to include field training officer, hostage negotiator, sexual assault, child abuse detective, administrative sergeant, and served as president of both the Gilroy Police Officers Association and the Gilroy Management Association. And whereas Jason was promoted to corporal in 2013, to sergeant in 2015, and to captain in January 2020. And whereas Jason is retiring from the position of police captain and has left his legacy as one of public service, teamwork, compassion, and dedication. And whereas on May 9th, 2025, Captain Jason Smith will retire from the Gilroy Police Department with the sincere gratitude and appreciation of the Gilroy City Council for his years of dedicated public service to our fine city. Therefore, I, Greg Bozo, Mayor of the City of Gilroy, and on behalf of the City Council, the citizens and employees of Gilroy, join in thanking Jason Smith for his commitment of service and wish him well in retirement for years to come.
Thank you. Let me start off by saying happy Cinco de Mayo. You can't forget that. But 19 years ago, I was up here saying thank you for hiring me and thank you for giving me a chance. And, you know, when you're in your career and you take these steps, you always hope it's the right step and it's the right choice. And I look back on my 30-year career. It'll be 30 years actually in July, so 29 years and 10 months, I just round up. Gilroy was the best decision I made in my career. And I got to tell you, I love every city that I work for. I work for Soledad, Capitola, and Gilroy. And I didn't leave there because I didn't like it. It was just because of maybe the situation, but I loved each one of these places. But I got to tell you, Gilroy is where I found home. And I found it because of the culture of the police department, the culture of caring, the culture of supporting good, smart police work, and the community, right? I don't live in Gilroy, but I feel like this is my home. And at times it is. And so what I'll tell you is we have something very special at the police department. We have something very special in the city. And there's just really good people that work here. And I got to tell you, I think I'm very thankful to be a part of that. And I appreciate it. I appreciated serving the community, working shoulder to shoulder, not just with people at the police department, but people in the city. And I just want to give a couple quick thank yous, and then I'll step off. But thank you, Chief Pedro Espinoza. I've worked with you since day one, and you have always been a mentor to me, and thank you for all your leadership, especially as chief. So thank you. And then real quick, thank you to my family. My wife probably deserves the proclamation more than I do because she's been with me longer than 30 years, and we've been together, married for 27 of those years. So if anybody deserves a proclamation, it's her. I have twice as much to write. And my daughter for being here, and her boyfriend Bobby, and thank you. This doesn't happen without a lot of love and support from your family. And so thank you very much. It's been an honor. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay, next I have two more proclamations. I'll do these jointly, but the next proclamation is Affordable Housing Month. So this City of Gilroy proclamation, whereas affordable housing for all is essential building block for the strong and resilient communities, and whereas an affordable place to call home provides everyone an opportunity to thrive, making our community healthier, more inclusive, and prosperous. And whereas the Santa Clara County 2025 Community Plan to End Homelessness emphasizes expanding homelessness prevention and housing program as a critical strategy to address our region's housing crisis. And whereas the City of Gilroy is actively working to reduce barriers to the production and preservation of affordable housing by collaborating with a network of organizations to deliver essential services, strengthen tenant protections, support innovative housing solutions, and advance efforts to end homelessness. And whereas the City of Gilroy remains committed to partnering with local, regional, and state agencies to secure funding to support the construction and preservation of high-quality, affordable homes that will serve as lasting community assets for generations to come. Now, therefore, I, Greg Bozo, Mayor of the City of Gilroy, on this 5th day of May 2025, together with my colleagues on the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2025 as Affordable Housing Month and invite the Gilroy residents to support affordable housing solutions and to recognize the efforts of the City of Gilroy and its dedicated community partners who seek to improve access to affordable housing opportunities in the City of Gilroy and neighboring communities. Thank you. So this next proclamation, again, has a lot to do with our community development department. So I would like to read this, and then I will ask the community development staff to come on up. So, whereas the City of Gilroy recognizes that our infrastructure and buildings are vital for safety and resilience during everyday life and disasters. And whereas the dedication of building safety officials, architects, engineers, and construction professionals ensure safe construction and the implementation of modern codes to protect against hazards. And whereas Building Safety Month, sponsored by the International Code Council, raises awareness of the importance of code officials in maintaining safe and accessible buildings. And whereas the 2025 theme, Game On, encourages public engagement in building safety. And whereas worldwide observance of Building Safety Month promotes commitment to improve building safety and resilience and acknowledges the essential services of building departments and fire prevention bureaus. Therefore, I, Greg Bozo, Mayor of the City of Gilroy, on the 5th day of May 2025, together with my colleagues on the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2025 as Building Safety Month and invite residents and businesses to support building safety and acknowledge the contributions of our safety professionals in protecting lives and property. Thank you. So Sharon, would you like to come on up?
Thank you, Mayor Bozo, council members and members of the community. Our Community Development Department, we're very excited to be celebrating Affordable Housing Month and Building Safety Month. And out there in the lobby, you'll see a series of flyers. We're hosting 5 Building Safety Month events and workshops and 6 Affordable Housing Month events and workshops. And there's also one that's a developer roundtable where our whole department is all joining in. That consists of our planning staff, building staff, housing staff, and fire prevention staff. So please join us. And I also want to acknowledge our hardworking team that's making the Gilroy community safer and more affordable. Thank you.
Why don't we all come down, council? We'll do our typical pictures. We'll start with the Community Development Department, and then we'll jump back to Captain Smith. Come on in. You want all of the Come on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, good. I'm going to have you all take like one step that way. Good, just trying to get you a little bit further away from that. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. And as a reminder to all those who receive proclamations, I always say this a little bit late, but you're under no obligation to sit through this entire meeting if you and your family. Just wanted to let you know that. Yeah. Wow, look at everyone. Okay, thank you, everybody, for listening to those. Moving on to item number 3, council correspondence. We have none. And moving on to item number 4, presentations to council. Item 4.1 is Youth Commission Annual Presentation. And Adam, take it away.
Actually, I'm going to introduce the chair of the commission, Alfred James. And oh no.
All right. Good evening, council members, and good evening, audience. My name is Alfred James, and I'm the current chair for the Gilroy Youth Commission. And today I'm here to present our end-of-year report and share what we've accomplished throughout this year. Before I go into the presentation, I'd like to explain the context behind the photo on this slide of the presentation. This was at one of our earlier Youth Commission meetings held this year, where students from the Santa Cruz County came and observed our meeting as they're trying to start their own youth board similar to ours, and it was an honor to have them view us as a model for this youth board. The Gilroy Youth Commission proudly represents the voice of local youth, advising the City Council on issues that impact teens, and we lead youth-focused initiatives across the community. This year, the Commission boosted civic engagement through events such as Opportunity Teen Fair, Senior Tech Week, and Breakfast with Santa, all while creating leadership and collaboration among our members. Here are some of the key highlights of this year. One of our most important changes was the bylaws that we amended. So one of the rules that we changed was the end of our terms. Historically, our terms had ended at the end of September. However, we felt that it wasn't necessary because it didn't line up with the end of school year. So we changed the bylaws so that our terms would end at the end of June, which would line up with the end of our school year. We also assisted the city with the Breakfast with Santa event at the Gilroy Senior Center, where we led arts and craft project for over 200 youth, and we assisted and helped serve breakfast. We also continued our tech help for seniors. This year, we were able to serve over 30 seniors at the Gilroy Senior Center, and we assisted them with their devices such as flip phones, iPhones, iPads, Androids, computers, and smartwatches. And finally, we held our Opportunity Teen Fair. The Opportunity Teen Fair was an event that we hosted, which acted as a fair for to expose high school students to job opportunities, volunteer opportunities, and internship experiences. We began planning this event in January, where we did outreach to dozens of vendors. We created various promotions through schools and social medias, with our videos reaching over 6,000 views. We worked together to set up the gym in the days before, and we assembled thank you baskets for the vendors that did show up. We also raffled out prizes to local organizations in Gilroy, such as Camino Coffee and Savvy's Ice Cream Parlor. Of the vendors that we reached out to, 24 showed up. We also had a significant number of students showed up. This year, we had 200, which was a significant increase compared to last year. We also had 80 people turn in their passports, and the passports were these pieces of paper that students would take around to different vendors, and as they were filled out, they were able to turn those in for raffle prizes. Here's some pictures of the event, which includes the planning process and some of the organizations that attended. We had many local organizations such as Gilroy Gardens, Gilroy Foundation, and the City of Gilroy Recreation Division. And we had some organizations come from outside of the city, such as the City of Morgan Hill and the Naval STEM program in Monterey. Now I'd like to invite Commissioners Ortega and Sandoval to discuss the legislative issue that the Youth Commission took on this year.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Rodriguez Sandoval, and I'm a senior from Christopher High School, and this is my first year on the Gilroy Youth Commission.
I'm Jacob Ortega. I'm a junior at GACA, and this is also my first year on the commission.
And I want to begin by thanking our fellow committee members, Sofia Romero, Ethan Diep, and Maya Barrett, for working together on this issue with us. 2 years ago, the Youth Commission made a recommendation that they should invest in a youth and teen center. But this year, we decided to explore a different direction. And so, the Gilroy Youth Commission identified the Loma Prieta flower, a native species in Gilroy that has great value in conservation and is in danger of going extinct. This plant is a rare species of legumes, so think beans and lentils, that also goes under the name of Loma Prieta leatherroot, Loma Prieta oita, and the Oita strobilina. Appearance-wise, it reaches up to 3 feet in height and grows purple pea-like flowers. It can be found in various places, such as our very own Mount Madonna, Christmas Hill, and Lions Creek. Aside from Gilroy, it can be encountered throughout the Bay Area in dry, rocky environments, but its presence is dwindling due to increased urbanization and habitat loss.
We became alerted that the Loma Prieta flower was threatened by extinction from the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Plan. Plants like the flower are responsible for the air we breathe, the food we eat, and even the medicine we use, which is why it is especially harmful that plant extinction rates are close to 500 times higher due to human activity. Each part of the ecosystem is tied together. Removing one plant from the equation might not collapse a habitat, but continuously removing plants will cause dire, irreversible effects. The flower also benefits our agricultural economy by attracting pollinators, which our local crops rely on. Some government agencies have addressed their own local species in a variety of ways, such as the enforced protections of the California poppy by the state of California, the management of feral cats by the East Bay Regional Park District, and the zoning laws and regulations placed in Monterey County to protect the Gilia flower.
As a first step, the Youth Commission is recommending to the City Council that they take action to address the conservation of the Loma Prieta flower. We propose the 3 E's. First, we want to focus on educating the public, such as through posting the flower on the city's website, partnering with the Welcome Center or Gilroy Gardens, distributing brochures, and hosting community-wide events. We also want to encourage growth of the flower, whether it be on city property or with businesses. And finally, we also encourage perhaps enforcement, such as through fines. We thank you for your time and consideration. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, except I just have a couple of comments. So there's 2 of the things you guys do that I absolutely love, and one of those is the tech for seniors. And I know that Adam always says, like, hey, when do you guys want to come back? Because they really need it. So I appreciate that. And I know that that group does too. And then the Opportune Fair. That's huge. So those 2 things alone and many of the other things that you guys have got involved in, I just want to make sure that you constantly get the younger folks in the Youth Commission it's building in succession. And that's oftentimes something that, you might hear like, oh, I wish the commission would do that again. So I just encourage you to really get those younger folks or those that are interested that you're trying to get on the commission to worry about that succession and make sure that those, those things that are successful continue on, even when you all end up leaving. Thank you.
So now I'll hand it over to Alfred.
Before I conclude the presentation, on behalf of the Youth Commission, I'd like to respectfully resubmit our letter advocating for a youth center in Gilroy in response to the civic master plan that was recently conducted in the Wheeler Gym. The youth center would be a hub for the youth in Gilroy to collaborate and foster leadership, creativity, and increase youth activity within the city. We hope you consider implementing this youth center in Gilroy, as we believe it will provide significant benefit to our community. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you. Great job. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 4.2, public comment by members of the public on items not on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council.
Yes, Mayor, Council, we have 2 speakers. First is Miguel Flacker, followed by Allison Singalani.
Good evening. I figured I'd come out here tonight, even though I was informed that the school crosswalk I've been requesting on behalf of the community has been scheduled. Thank you for the call. I'm Miguel Antonio Flacker II. I'm a Marine veteran, San Jose State graduate, Gilroy resident, member of the Veterans Hall here in Gilroy, and a parent of a 4-year-old pre-TKer. In the Marine Corps, I provided internal and external security services at U.S. embassies. After I got out, I did loose and close protection for ultra-high net worth individuals and their kids here in California. I mentioned this to illustrate I'm adept in recognizing the safety issues, and I'm familiar in the proper means of addressing and rectifying them. Navigating the school crosswalk issue wasn't the smoothest, as Gilroy City personnel didn't respond to me until a month later after I wrote a follow-up email advising I was going to bring this subject up to the City Council. The superintendent didn't respond at all. Even then, the Gilroy School safety rep advised that he had non-current contact information for the city traffic engineers, something that I later found in 5 minutes and placed a ticket in, and as well as sent an email detailing the importance of the request. Others kept referring me to the traffic sergeant, who's a great person, but it's my understanding that the implementation of traffic devices do not fall in the realm of his responsibility, as this kind of displays is kind of a break in communication and just knowledge of these processes. When I was collecting signatures for the school crosswalk petition, other issues were brought to my attention by the residents of 9th Street. I feel like the community either lacks faith in our local government to bring up school safety concerns, or there's a language barrier, which I'm happy to be the medium for. That said, I want to use this time to formally introduce myself because I have a feeling I'll be communicating with the city more frequently regarding community efforts and initiatives relating to schools. For the Spanish speakers, para mi comunidad aquí en Gilroy, si necesitan algo, dime. Estoy aquí para ustedes y para ser tu voz. Aunque no podemos cambiar cosas en un solo día, al menos podemos hacer oír. Thank you for the time and pleasure to meeting everyone here face to face.
Thank you, Miguel.
The next speaker is Allison Cingolani, and she's our last speaker.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. My name is Allison Cingolani. I'm the Director of Policy with SCVE at Home. We are a nonprofit organization that advocates for policy solutions to meet the housing needs of residents across all of the income levels. That includes policies for producing additional affordable housing, preserving the affordable housing we have, and protecting our most vulnerable community members from displacement and homelessness. I wanted to thank you tonight for recognizing the importance of affordable housing and the hard work of the Community Development Department with the Affordable Housing Month proclamation. The City of Gilroy has traditionally been a leader in producing low-income housing, and we thank you for that. We are in a very challenging economic environment, and despite the hard work that the City of Gilroy has done, more than 20% of Gilroy's renters are still paying more than half of their income each month for rent just to keep a roof over their heads. So the work continues. We ask that you continue to support the work of the Community Development Department as they implement the programs in Gilroy's housing element, which are designed to meet the housing needs of all of Gilroy's residents, including those at lower income levels. We also want to invite both you and members of the public to be a part of Affordable Housing Month. SCVE at Home convenes both our own events and partner events from across the county, including many in Gilroy and Morgan Hill, 6 of which are hosted by the City of Gilroy. Our theme this month is Strengthen Housing, and that speaks both to the asset that affordable housing is in strengthening and sustaining our communities, and also the strength of what we can do together when we come together to move forward with affordable housing and meeting the needs of our lower income households. So we invite you to check out the full calendar of events at siliconvalleyathome.org and hope to see you at some of those events. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Allison.
That's our final speaker.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 5, reports of council members. Councilmember Bracco.
Yes, I wanted to report on the 17th at the library. There'll be unveiling the Gilroy Library Earthen Excursion exhibit, children's area, and this is something that's been in the works for years, and it'll be finished and we'll be dedicating it. California also received $5 million from the Dolly Parton Foundation, and the state of California matched it, and later this year we'll be rolling out a book program where kids sign up and they get a book a month for free, no charge, an age-appropriate book to foster a love of reading and a love of education. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fugazi.
Nothing at this time.
Councilmember Marks.
No report.
Councilmember Hilton.
Thank you. From the Valley Transportation Authority Policy Advisory Committee, the Gilroy Transit Center has a new feature with 18 long-term modern bike parking e-lockers that don't require a key to use. VTA replaced its 200-plus bike lockers with new, more secure, on-demand bike link e-lockers operated and maintained by E-Lock Technologies. Each locker provides 2 separate bicycle parking spaces, creating nearly 400 upgraded bicycle parking spaces. The new bike lockers will connect to the cloud via Wi-Fi, allowing customers to see in real time if a parking space is available. Every location will have at least 1 parking space for oversized bicycles. Lockers can be rented for 5 cents an hour using the BikeLink app, Clipper Card, or BikeLink Card. From Silicon Valley Clean Energy, we received an update that the City of Gilroy has been awarded a grant from our partners at the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, MTC ABAG, for the EV charging stations at the Gilroy Library. This is a great example of how SVC staff and Gilroy staff continue to work together to create opportunities to benefit our community and go after grants. SVC board established a community fund. The purpose of the fund is to fund long-term strategic initiatives critical to the agency's mission. Funds above reserve policy targets will be identified as part of the budget process each year to meet key strategic objectives on rate stabilization and bill affordability, scalable support for pollution-free appliances, and local and emerging power supply technology. SVC has purchased a new headquarters. SVC has been leasing office space at its current location since 2016. Staff spent over a year looking for a building to purchase, touring many sites, including the building at 298 South Sunnyvale Avenue. In November of 2024, the building went on the market, and with the approval of the board, SVC made an offer to purchase it. The 28,000 square foot building has recently undergone major remodels to interior and exterior. Working with the board, staff will develop a plan for how to best utilize the new space for staff and the community. We hope to move into the new space in early 2026. From the South County Youth Task Force policy team, the violence prevention plan recently was presented and motion approved by the Board of Supervisors to direct the administration to incorporate implementation of the South County Youth Task Force into the work of the newly approved Office of Violence Prevention and direct the administration to include it in the June budget, including any necessary changes to assign 2 new community outreach specialists, community workers from social services, probation, and public health, and initiate engagement with the DA about reintegrating a community prosecutor. The residents and leaders of East Gilroy, along with community partners, have strongly advocated for prioritizing gun violence prevention as one of the SC HEAL's focus areas. As a result, we are planning our first gun violence prevention committee meeting, which I am co-chairing. The South County Youth Task Force has re-engaged with the Gilroy's Alexander Station new management team, restarted services, and reestablished relationships. Direct intervention in services is one of the key focuses and successes of this task force. And lastly, happy Affordable Housing Month and happy Bike Month. Thank you.
Councilmember Ramirez.
No report.
Councilmember Klein.
No report.
I'm going to report on, I'm on the board for Gilroy Gardens, and last month, the Gilroy Gardens marketing and management team presented something new they have this summer, just to give an advance notice to the members of the community in case you haven't heard it, something that they're calling Cherry's Jubilee. They're celebrating everything cherry, and I was very, very impressed by their presentation. It has everything to do with their programming, food. It's really, really well thought out. It lasts the entire month of about the month of June. So it's just something to look forward if you're looking for something new at Gilroy Gardens. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6 is the consent calendar. Any public comment on the consent calendar?
No speakers at this time.
Thank you. So I'm looking, any questions by staff? Excuse me, by council?
Make a motion.
Okay.
Accept the consent.
Yep. I have a motion to accept the consent calendar, items 6.1 through 6.7 by Councilmember Klein. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Bracco. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein.
Yes.
Councilmember Fugazi.
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton.
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Yes.
Mayor Bozo.
Yes. Moving on to item number 7, bids and proposals. 7.1, award a contract to William Duff Architects Incorporated for fire station renovations, architectural services in the amount of $243,076. And just to be clear, I know we've been talking about the fire stations a lot lately. This does not have to do with the new fire station. This has to do with renovations at the existing fire stations. Take it away, John.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, community. Pleased to be here. John Dowdy, representing Public Works, and I'm happy to present this contract for you. This, again, is involving 2 stations, not named Santa Teresa, but that too is coming. This one involves Chestnut and Los Animas, and as the staff report indicated, these are pretty old facilities and are certainly in need of some modernization and factors. This is a proposal to award design, which would be a precursor to actual construction of improvements. Both construction and the design costs are included within the current CIP. The project basically does involve quality of life arrangements for firefighters. A big piece of this is modernizing and also modernizing to the current and workforce realities, which is men and women in the firefighting world. This station was also built when a time when two-member companies were the standard, and this would accommodate at least the 3+, and also was part before even emergency medical started coming into the mix for these. So these are definitely in need of some adjustments. The other piece of consideration of both of these is that there needs to be a complete seismic assessment of these to make sure that there aren't issues and concerns that need to be addressed for long-term viability and stability. The project basically, again, addresses basic living conditions and the seismic assessment, and I won't go into that. But this follows the 2016 fire station needs assessment. This project was intended to be brought forth in around 2019, and we all know what happened around that point with the COVID. This was put on hiatus, and we've just been able to pick this up at this point and run with it. Again, we went through a solicitation process, and William Duff Architects was recommended and chosen as the firm that we believe will serve the community the best. Again, this is funded in the CIP, and this actually results in a significant reduction in the cost for overall design because we've consolidated into a single project. So we're not paying design costs for one and a design cost for a second. We're able to consolidate and use those same design costs and bring that down as well. And I think critical to this is this includes a time and materials component of $20,000, which will mean that we'll have assistance from the architect as we move forward in choosing the contractor for this and preparing for the proposals for the actual construction bids. So that'll be very helpful to the process as well. Again, our recommendation is approval of this contract with William Duff at $243,076 and authorizing the city administrator to execute the contract and associated documents. Next steps, if you approve this, we will proceed to award this, move forward with the design, bid document preparation, and bid as soon as we possibly can following that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Councilmember Fugazzi?
So this has the seismic part in it. If I'm not
Yes.
incorrect, we had something in a recent LAFCO report. Is that correct? Who happens to know that about the seismic needs? And so this is going to address that in terms of what we need to have there, and then obviously we have to
Both
build it.
facilities will have seismic assessments.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Ramirez?
Just out of curiosity, are the funds set aside for the actual construction that is going to be designed? And if so, what fund is that going to be?
Same fund as for this one, which is the facilities fee. And yes, there are funds for each one of them. It remains to be seen exactly what we may have to come back and look at some additional monies or reducing some of the scope of the work, but we're hopefully able to make that. There's basically, I believe, $1.5 million for each one at this point.
1.5 for each?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Further questions? Councilmember Bracco?
No, it's just 1.5 million. That's a dream.
Meaning it's not enough?
Yeah, we'll probably have to dip into reserves to redo the firehouse.
You're not saying that they don't have.
Can you speak into your mic, please, Councilmember Ramirez?
So you're not saying they don't have the 1.5, you're just saying we're going to have to spend a lot more. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Other questions? Okay. I will entertain a motion to award excuse me, I'm so sorry. Public comment, please.
We have no speakers at this time.
I will entertain a motion to award a contract to William Duff Architects Incorporated for fire station renovations, architectural services in the amount of $243,076.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Marks and a second by Councilmember Fugazi.
Just for clarity, I assume your motion includes the second part, authorizing the city administrator to execute the agreement and related documents. Is that correct?
Sure. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein.
Yes.
Councilmember Fugazi.
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton.
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Yes.
Mayor Bozo.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 8. Okay. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. I'm going to skip around. Yes. The attorney's administrative reports. Okay, we're going to jump around in the schedule a little bit. As I said earlier, we're trying to have a 7 o'clock start on one of the items. So we're going to jump to the city administrator's report, number 12.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 reports, one concerning the Santa Teresa Fire Station. The city will be submitting an RFP for a design-build vendor by June 1st, and expect for council to approve that contract in July. And it's important to note that this is a design-build contract, so we won't have to wait to finish the design and then bid out the contracting or construction, so it will make it more efficient. And we expect to have that design-build contract and everything in place by the end of this year. So we're moving along kind of parallel to what we're doing with the other 2 fire station renovations. At one time, we'll have 3 of our fire stations either under construction or under renovation. But the good thing is all 3 of them are funded to a certain level at this time. So we're moving right along and have had no major hiccups. We do expect shortly the Glen Loma folks will be grading the land and getting it ready for the building and retaining walls and things like that. But there's no issues right now at this time, so that's very good. Second, just wanted to give you a very quick fire service update. As you know, the LAFCO decision and Board of Supervisors decision impacts our Tree Haven Fire Station. We have had operational discussions with County Fire about how to activate that station come July 1st. They certainly have their challenges on a short turnaround. They don't have the personnel quite yet. They will get them. They're in the Fire Academy, so they have folks coming, and so we may be in a situation where we'll need to help them out and bridge a short period of time while they get staffing ready to go and such. One of the good things about this transition is that we were needing to negotiate auto aid, mutual aid, boundary drop agreements with other entities. And this is forcing everybody, especially from the county and the city, to the table to relook at these agreements. And an example would be that over time, calls for service into a certain area may increase, and one entity may be doing more of the work that's outlined in the agreement. And thus, it's always good to relook at those with a fresh set of eyes and try to make sure that everybody's being compensated and handling the service level that we expect. So we are moving right along with County Fire. We've had a lot of discussions with the County Fire Chief and the Assistant Chief, and everybody's putting their heads down trying to get this in a good spot by July 1st. That concludes my report. Thank you. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I also have a sharks update. The soil's okay. So that's very good news. For those of you who don't know, we've been waiting for several months for the soils report out at the sports park. There seems to be really no issues with it, nothing major that will cause really any concern in the project. So we have one last step to complete, and that is the cost estimate. And we have a preliminary cost estimate that we are working on, value engineering, making some adjustments to. And so I do expect in June to be coming to council with an update, a more official update about the cost, and then talking to council about how we how we fund and how we provide the improvements to the entire sports park that is going to be needed for all 9 phases. In case you don't recall, this is only phase 3, and when you're doing a major project of this size, you have some benefits and some cost savings from getting the rest of the park ready for additional development down the road. But I'm not ready quite yet to talk about numbers or how we fund that. But we're getting closer and closer, and we really have one box left to check before we really go all in on this project. So that concludes my report.
Jimmy, I have a question. You don't mind? What happened to food trucks on the agenda tonight?
It's on there.
It is? Where?
Food truck ordinance 9.1.
I don't have an, I don't.
9 unfinished business 9.1 food truck ordinance update.
Huh. Did I just get into a different screen? I don't have it.
Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 13, City Attorney's Report.
Okay, brief report on CEQA. And I've talked to you in the past about how complex CEQA is and the cases that come out every year and the legislation. A couple of weeks ago, Councilmember Hilton saw me reading our paperback version of CEQA and requested a copy so that he could follow along with this. Now, no council members ever asked for this in the past, I have to say. However, as a contribution from my firm, we have ordered copies of these, and I'm going to pass them out. You can each have one. When I started practicing law here, this book was about a 1/4 inch thick. It's now an inch thick and 450 pages, but enjoy. Well, here, I'll pass it.
This is mine, I guess. No, now we're passing them down.
I got one for Jimmy, too. Oh, thank you. All right, there you go. Okay? There will be a test. I only gave you 2. Is there an extra one there? Okay, can we have it back? Thank you. Sorry. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Really excited about this book.
As well you should be.
Okay, I'm going to burn 13 seconds here and do item number 11, which is future council initiated agenda items. And there are none, which allows me to move on to item 8.2, 7 o'clock start. So here's the description. We are going to hold the 5th public hearing regarding the city's transition from an at-large to a district-based election system for the purpose of receiving the demographer's presentation on the transition process, the information received regarding communities of interest in the city, the possible contours of 6 districts, the drawing of maps by redistricting partners, the review of maps submitted on the city's website by other means, and the presentation of legally compliant draft maps to the City Council for the 6 new districts, as well as the order of elections for the 2026 and 2028 election cycle. Are there any questions or comments by council before we turn it over to Liz, the demographer? Okay, take it away.
Great. So good evening. This will probably be the toughest meeting so far. So we have received probably over 40 public maps. And then we have the draft maps to go over. And the goal tonight is really to narrow it down to 1 to 3 maps so the public can go to the next meeting knowing which maps you are considering. So we're going to go over, obviously, the traditional redistricting principles that we've used to draw maps. We'll go over some of the public maps and focus on the draft maps. Of course, the City Council can pull up any public map they want to discuss and entertain that as a potential draft map. We'll quickly go over what sequencing is, and then public hearing schedule and what's next. So this is the Fair Maps Act requirements that we've used throughout this process. I'm sure you're all very familiar with it at this point. Each district has to be relatively equal in size. We're talking about U.S. Census population when we're determining that. Each district needs to be contiguous, maintaining communities of interest while not considering things like political parties, candidates, incumbents. Lines should be easy to identify. If somebody saw the map for the first time and they saw the lines, it should be understandable. And then we want to keep districts compact. So we're avoiding those funny looking shapes and shooting for things like circles and squares. So we have had a plethora of maps from the public, almost 40, and the City Council has had the opportunity to review them. And like I mentioned, you have the opportunity to pull up any of those maps that you want to discuss tonight. And you had the opportunity to do that last time. So getting into the new draft map that was requested, we have draft map E. So this is based off of ID 289808. Total population is under 2%. However, I do have some concerns about this map that I do want to flag. So there are only 2 districts with a Latino CVAP of over 50% when we know we can get to 3 or 4. And then it splits the east side into 3. So under the Fair Maps Act, we're required to minimize splits. We have some maps that split the east side into 2. With a large enough population, it's understandable to split it into 2, but splitting it into 3 and adding it to the west side is counter to what we've heard from the public. So this is the map. And then, okay, so now we have draft A. So this is what you've seen since the 3rd meeting. Total deviation is 7% based off of a public map. And it follows a lot of the trends that we've seen. The east side is held together. And when we compare it to the map that was submitted, minor changes were made. Total deviation, 7%. Draft map B, 6.8%. Total deviation. This uses a different iteration of what we've seen in terms of trends from the public. And this is what the map originally submitted looked like with an overlay of the map B. Total deviation, 6.8%. Draft C, 6.9% total deviation. Remember, 10% deviation is the maximum, so we're well under that. And this is based off of public testimony. So this also gives you a different way of viewing the west side. And total deviation, 6.9%. And then draft map D, this is based off of a public map, ID 289301. And I do believe this map had support from the public as well. And you'll see that it keeps together the east side. It follows Hecker Pass as a divider. And this was the original map. And then we have 7.5 total deviation. So real quickly, I'm just going to introduce the topic of sequencing. We're not going to talk about it tonight, but, or at least we're not talking about specifics tonight, but sequencing is what determines when each district will go up for election. So as you all know, elections are naturally staggered, so half of you will go up in 2026, the other half will go up in 2028. And so what we have to do in concurrence with districting is choose the sequencing. So we can use a different array of options for choosing districting, obviously listening to the public on which districts they want to go up first or last. Oftentimes following natural election cycles, or uplifting districts that are historically underrepresented. Those are all reasons to sequence that we've seen with other clients. Currently, we have it where evens are up in 2026, odds are up in 2028. But because you can talk about your incumbency and your residents, we can't talk about that until you select a map. So we won't be talking about specifics in terms of sequencing tonight. The focus really is to narrow down the maps. And then at the next meeting, we'll talk about sequencing because then we can start basing it off of potentially where you guys live. So tonight is the 5th hearing. Last time you decided to add an extra one, which I think was a great idea. It allowed more testimony. And that also means the next hearing will be your opportunity to vote on a map and sequencing. So like I said, we have a lot to discuss tonight. And really the goal is to narrow it down. And it's also the last time you'll have the opportunity to make adjustments. So with the understanding that you'll be narrowing down the maps, you'll also have the opportunity to change the maps in terms of placement of lines. We could do that live tonight as well, so you can see how adjustments made change the map. And then we'll bring back the final maps. We'll make it clear on the website too, so the public has an understanding of which maps are being considered at the last hearing. So with that, I will hand it back to the mayor.
Sure. I would like to make a comment, and maybe I'll ask you to comment a little bit about it as well. So, as you said, this is for the public. As you said, we are aiming to select some final maps tonight, and that we did this. We made a conscious decision as council to not be deciding tonight, so that we can, after tonight, there may be 2 or 3 maps that are under consideration, that now that this community can really start to have a real distinct conversation about what maps are best for our community. Instead of, as you said, how many have been submitted? 40. And not all of those even qualify, correct?
Correct.
So the goal tonight, even though 40 maps have been submitted, not all of them could even be considered. The goal tonight is to take a look at the around 5 or 6 that have been elevated to draft status up until now. Some others tonight may still be elevated to draft status, which should happen probably a little sooner rather than later, and then we can decide if we're at 6 or 7 or 8 tonight to try to get back to a smaller number tonight, a few, so that for 2 weeks we're talking about 2 or 3 maps probably, and not 40 or 15 or 10. Is that about right?
That's right, yes.
Thank you. Some questions, comments?
At the same time, if there's consensus on any that we already have as drafts that we want to drop as drafts, is that something also that we should entertain right now? Or in this time frame?
We will be, yeah. We definitely will be, yeah. Councilmember Klein.
Speaking of elevating maps, what I'd like to, they're looking at the different ones. There was one Fair-1, which was 293,684, but then there's another one similar to that. It's 293,688. I'd like to pull that up. It's an iteration adjustment to the 293,684, just some modifications to it. And can we do that?
Yeah. So is the next step then you would bring that up, or do we need to make a decision on it? Can you just bring that up to make sure it qualifies?
Yes.
Is that how?
Yeah.
How the process should go?
So let me.
Is that okay? Is that okay with everybody? Zalden, this is new to all of us. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it.
Does that meet?
So, just looking over, it has 3 districts with Latino CVAP over 50%. This is a very common shape that we've seen on the west side. My recommendation would be to try to increase it to 4 districts with a majority Latino CVAP, but it's something we can entertain.
Okay.
How does this compare to Map B?
Map B.
With the statistics as well as the map lines?
Let me pull it up real fast. So it does look like there are some differences. So very similar west side. What we're seeing different is, I would say, the middle is a little different. So let's go back. It's a little bit more square. This is very similar. Let me just pull it up in Districtor. So you can see with map B, this is shaped differently. And in fact, I wonder, do we want the high school district with the west side? I'm not sure.
But more of a downtown area, center section of, between probably Lewis and 10th from Monterey East. Those are the areas that look like they're somewhat different.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you saying on B? B has 4 districts?
B has 4. That's
B has 4. The 688, Fair 1 has 3, but I think on your, it's very close. So is that what you're suggesting, just to move a few streets around?
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting, this is just an overall observation to me, going back from the very beginning, when the early requirements were straight lines and streets and things like that. And that's why the Fair 1 jumped out at me. Without me having a lot of experience, I would think to myself, that's it. If you're thinking B, that's it. But now it seems like there needs to be some alterations to it.
That would be my recommendation.
To reach 4.
So if you were on
That's right.
B, sorry, Greg, if you were on B and you included those blocks, which look like they're between 4th and 7th from Eagleberry to Monterey, or 3rd, sorry, from 3rd to 7th, and you included those there, how does that change the situation?
So add these in.
Yeah, those 5 that are there, does that blow it up?
So population looks fine. And then we still have 4 districts with over 50% Latino CDAP.
Okay. Now, if you take out, there's in the upper right corner there by IOOF, there's one kind of block that's there by itself. Take that out and put it in the. I'm sorry, I'm colorblind, so it's the one below.
Let's look at the population.
Still works.
Still works. Yeah.
Any comments from other council members?
So right now, just make sure I understand this before the public does. You just altered Fair 1 or B?
Just altered B.
B, okay.
To make a slight adjustment to.
But B already had the 4, correct? Yes, B already had 4 majority.
Right. I'm basically trying to make it more contiguous down Monterey and also
okay, thank you. Okay.
Keeping San Ysidro Park into the section down below.
Okay.
And in doing that, it didn't blow everything else up. And so that is my recommendation on that.
On B. Okay, well, for the time being, Councilmember Klein, you brought it up. Is that so far?
Yeah, and we can, I put it out there, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
To consider.
Okay. All right, some other comments on other maps?
So the B with adjustments, I'd like to elevate that as a draft, if that's okay.
So I was just going
Is
to
that
ask you,
already
are
in
you
the draft?
replacing B with the B adjustments, or are we
Well, we're not
adding
replacing
it
anything
also?
yet until I
Okay.
think we
So it's just
have
another
a discussion on
option.
that. It's another draft, and then I think we can basically start to do some elimination too.
But you know,
As a
before
group.
we do that, though, what about going back to what you had originally showed us, 293,688, where you said there was only 3 districts? We haven't even looked at that to do any adjustments to see if we could turn it into 4, and then that would be another option.
That's true. It's also
So let's
possible.
look at that one again, 293,688.
Okay, great.
Which districts do comply? Are you allowed to tell us that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what I would recommend is try to increase the Latino CVAP in this fuchsia colored district. So we could make some changes, like adding the district with the high school, or the high school block in.
Does that blow up? Doesn't that blow up the overall population? If we
So if we add that in, that looks fine. What we could also do is adjust this, see if we can get it to Monterey Street. So green takes up.
can you turn off that multicolored thing because it's really messing with my eyes, a little color blindness.
So Monterey Street, it's not following that, which we could probably attempt to get if we want to.
Well, I think that makes sense also the way it's drawn. My own personal opinion, that was more preferred than the way I modified B. But you also have a bunch of precincts that are not selected over there for when I think you did the last population check. Okay.
Yeah, we're still, as long as this number is under 5, we're good.
Okay, to be clear, you just modified the fair one, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And now we're at 49.7%. So we could try to make some more adjustments, see if we can get it higher. Sorry, I'll turn that off in a moment. And now we're at 50.2, so we're over 50%.
Okay, Councilmember Marks, since you brought that one up.
I just wanted to see how it was going to work. I'm not going to send it forward. I personally, someone else might.
Okay.
Councilmember Klein, since you brought up the fair one that was before, would you prefer this modification of fair one, or would you prefer the way I modified B?
Yeah, I like the modification. I like the modifications to B, and suggesting this just as an option to that. Again, we're going to the chopping block. So
now for
in the
correct
sense of B, we've modified that. I'm good with that too.
For clarification, obviously the one, which is the fair one, 688 one, it basically goes to railroad on the one side, so it includes all of kind of historic downtown in it. That's kind of the real clarification between, I think, these two maps.
Right.
Does that sound about right? So that's really how I think, if we're looking at it comparatively, any of us, that's probably one of the most key ways to see the difference.
Yeah, that is.
I, for one, prefer keeping that together. So if we've got the original fair one that is modified so that we get the right number of majority-minority districts, I would prefer that one as a draft, myself.
Okay, so hold that thought.
So for clarity from, is it Lewis or no? Is it Lewis or Fourth? Fourth to Seventh, and Railroad to the east. It keeps it together so that all of what's generally considered the historic downtown is kind of staying together in that western district, and not split down the middle.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so everyone hold that thought, and then let's move on. Let's talk about some other maps. Let's elevate some other maps. Unless you have questions still about B. All right, so some other maps.
I think the final at least for me, I think and I appreciate Councilmember Marks bringing that up because I didn't see that adjustment that probably could be made before. But I think that I have a preference, unless there's an objection, to raise that modified Fair 1 ending in 688 up to a draft, which would be what, draft F or what have you. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So we don't need to take a vote on that, but is that everyone comfortable with that at this point? There's still a chance it may also be taken off, but at least it's now on the draft. Okay. But later, we'll certainly be most likely making a definite decision between this modified Fair 1 and the B, because they're very similar.
Since you're speaking of that, is there any that we know right now that we might want to take off of the list?
Yeah, I would say let's.
Okay.
If you don't mind, let's talk about some of the others, and I'm going to start. So I've received comments from the community that I would just like to, that seems to definitely have interest in this community, and that's draft D with JH05 overlay. So if you can bring that one up,
Yes.
and maybe confirm that it's still eligible.
You said draft D, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called draft D with JH05 overlay. It's already in your drafts, I believe.
It is. It should
I know
be
you
on
keep going
Districtor.
over it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, or draft
Yeah.
D.
It's already in your drafts.
I know.
So the difference about this comment is we're not asking to elevate this to draft status because it's already there, correct?
Correct.
Right. And I just think it's important. I've heard feedback on this, and I also think it's important to draw a distinction now that we have one that we've already talked about, which splits the east side, and this one does not split the east side. So I think it's very important that both of these are out there. Councilmember Ramirez.
So I agree. I've gotten a lot of comments on this one. I've gotten just as many comments on draft A. So, and pretty much the same people are polling up both. So could you, just for giggles, hold up and compare A and D?
Yeah, can we have them side by side?
Side by
Thank
side and
you.
see where the difference lies?
Let me go ahead and do that.
And that's JH07.
So this is draft A.
Okay. Can you make it larger, please?
If there's any area you want to zoom in on, happy to do that.
I just want to see the difference.
Yeah. And draft D. So these, I believe they're both drawn by the same member of the public. He's here tonight. Hello, Jack. He's been great in this whole process. So you'll see, keeps the east side together, very similar top, sort of splits the middle into 3 different areas, but the divides are different. And it does have 4 Latino CVAP districts of over 50%, so both of them do.
Can you, the difference between the two that jumps out to me are the area that jumps out to me that is most different is between District 3 and 4 on that one and 3 and 5 on the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of show, it's hard for me to see like where these lines, where the streets are, so that we kind of see what neighborhoods they're differentiating between?
Yeah. So draft A, you can see, well, actually, let me start with draft D. Draft D does follow Monterey. So that's the divider on the, District 5 and 3. This partially follows Monterey. And then what we're really looking at as the divider between 3 and 4, it's partially West 6, goes up into 5th, and then back to 6. With draft D, let's see if I can find it in District, or it should be here. Come on. It's a little bit more clean. It goes up to 3rd Street, and then, how is that pronounced? Prince Valle. And then I believe that's 6th Street, or it's 8th Street into Miller.
Which one is this one?
This is draft D.
It's interesting that now that you bring them up really close and that we have them side by side, you do see that D is definitely cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We can also make changes to A to sort of clean that up as well. So that's an option, but D has already got those straight lines.
Yeah.
Could you play with A? I just because I'm thinking that 6th Street is more of a natural, where the other one reaches up further to 3rd Street.
So which parts do you want changed?
I think when we're hearing it's cleaner, it's more along Monterey.
Okay. See if I make.
And don't you also mean like the top part of the light green? It's on 5th Street for just part of it. Did you want to drop that down to 6th? I heard you say 6th Street. Yeah, it seems natural to drop the light green down to 6th. I don't know where the numbers are going to end up, but.
And then possibly move the light green over into the blue to make it line up with Monterey. Looks like it's running along Eagleberry.
Yeah, we're already at over 6%.
Oh, okay, you
for this
can't do that
one.
for that one then. Okay.
Yeah, so it looks like that puts us over 10%. So we would have to take away from this district, which we could, this purple, oops.
No,
Take
that
some
doesn't make sense.
here.
More like here. Down by Clarkway would be.
And then we can try to make those changes. So let's see what happens to the population when we do that. And looks like that's the smallest. I would want to make a little bit of a change. Let's see. So this needs to lose population.
It's as if this is as if the draft D person this is what they did. They went through the same process probably. And ended
Probably,
up
yeah.
It sure looks
Yeah.
like it, the way you're going.
That's okay.
So it's balanced now. And we do have one district that's so close to over 50% Latino CVAP, where I would recommend that we see if we can go over that threshold.
I mean, since it is so close to
Yeah.
map D,
Yeah.
maybe this is one of the ones where we go, you know what?
I agree.
Yeah, D.
So are you saying to get rid of A?
I'm saying A in its, if A in its current form, I think looks a little wacky, right? And making it non-wacky makes it, sorry, that's a technical term, makes the data not work the way that we need it to, then it basically means to me that it needs to go away. Because the key similarity between the two that we're looking at is the unified east side, really. That is the thing. So that's what I was saying. Right, is in D, exactly.
In the interest of reducing, that's a natural then.
Great.
Well, just for the sake of the alphabet,
Yeah.
we've done A, B, D, and E. there's a C. Why don't you bring up C and let's cover them all.
This one's really weird.
All right, so this is C, based off of public testimony.
So far, all the maps that you've brought up seem to have much more linear and square and rectangle. So do you have a comment on this?
So we're seeing a very different west side. This isn't using Hecker Pass. We're seeing sort of a different district in the north. This isn't a very common shape, but I believe it still keeps together the community that lives here. And then we're seeing a different middle. So in the previous ones we've looked at, there's sort of been a 3 stacked districts in the middle. And it's more 2 in the middle, 2 on the east, and 2 on the west.
Did you say originally to be careful of moving east to west? Is that one of the criteria?
So one of the things that I would caution against is adding the west with a district in the east. So respecting, the east side as a community of interest and not adding them with the west side.
Okay.
On map A, it kind of curved around and went all the way across Eagle Ridge.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. Yeah, it seems like we're moving away from that one. Is that what you're commenting about? The map A? Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Further questions, comments? Not yet. No, I will. So let's.
When do we try to get consensus on removing any maps? Or are we not
I think we should hear from the
take
public first. Yeah, definitely. Public comment, please.
So at this time, we have no speakers.
Oh.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm ready to take a stab at pulling a couple forward, or do we want to continue the conversation?
Take a stab.
No, go ahead. Take a shot.
I propose the new one was F? DNF? DNF going forward.
I'm totally in agreement with that.
And F, remind us what F is, everybody?
The new one that was brought up.
So it's the fair one?
Yeah. With the modifications that she made live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, my apologies. The system for some reason didn't add a public speaker, and so we do actually have one.
Yeah. Let's go to public speaker. That's okay. Yeah, thank you.
Bill O'Connor. I'm here to support map D. When talking about the common interest or the public interest and communities of interest, the one I've heard most about is keeping the east side together. Now, whether you put them in 1, 2, or 3 districts, they're going to still be in a place that's mostly Hispanic. I think what's really driving them is the idea of neighborhood and community that is very unique over there. So I would really like to see that be one district. Now, I did hear from Councilman Fugazi talking about, downtown and maybe having both sides of Monterey in the same side. One of the things you might do is, instead of cutting it down Monterey, cut it down the railroad tracks. There's not very many people between Monterey and the railroad tracks. As far as sequencing, we've got 3 council members that'll continue, Councilman Fugazi, Hilton, and Ramirez. So when you get where you finally have your districts, they may be in 1, 2, or 3 districts, but those districts should be a 2028 automatically, or however many that's in. And to the extent that there's nobody on the east side, if you do make an east side district and there's no council person in that, they're probably the biggest driver for coming to a district type, voting. And so I would highly recommend, if there's no council member there, that they are sequenced in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's our last speaker.
Okay. Back to, go ahead. You were speaking?
I just think that they offer communities of interest and differences enough to be able to get, I just don't want to pull up two that are so close, they're just, streets apart type of thing. I think that we need to give, if we're going to give options, we give options.
Also, I'll say that with the 688/Fair 1 modified that you did, I believe at IOOF, that's the dividing line also for South Valley Middle School as far as going north and south. I also personally looked at some of the maps like that and looked at the three previous voting districts and who were elected in each of those three voting precincts that were on the east side. And it was not very much the same all the way up. It was obviously much more Latino as you went north and much different as you went south in terms of their choices and the commonality of the choices in the group. So that's why I see and I've heard from some people that that south section is not the same as people clear a couple miles up north. So I think it's a really good idea to have these two choices and get the time to have the community look at it.
Further comments? Go ahead.
My preference is the new B map. That's it.
That's now F.
Okay.
That's map F.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. It's technically B2. So map F is the Fair 1 modification. So
right.
the B map would be
yes. I'm
B2.
Sorry. Thank you
yes.
for the correction.
Can you pull those up side by side?
Yes. So this was the change to draft B. There were changes here, and it goes all the way to Monterey now. And then this would be draft F. This is the change to the Fair 1.
Can you put them side by side?
Yes.
And they both have the 4 and the populate, everything is all.
Is that right?
So can you review some of the things? I think one of them was one of the precincts where Gilroy High School was. You moved into the magenta section, and the one next to it, I think you moved into the magenta section, right?
Yeah, so I'm trying to determine, it looks like it might be over just barely. So we would either, I think we need to take a little bit away from the magenta district.
And add to which one?
I think if where the Gilroy High School is in the bottom left corner of the magenta, that's where you were, and then there's one precinct just to the right of that, a small one right next to the mobile home park.
Yeah, those two right there.
Yeah, so if you take out that one right next to the mobile home park, which is right next where it says Alta Street, you take that one out.
Yeah, the problem is that's how we are able to get over 50% Latino CVAP. So we wouldn't be able to make that change, but we would be able to, for example, bring that in. No, that makes no difference. We would need to take.
I thought when you were doing it real time, you actually got to the right numbers. And
That's what I thought too, but we would need to get this population a little bit lower.
Did that occur on F?
no, you included, if you look, you included another neighborhood, I think, east of Railroad Street there, if you look. Oh, no, never mind. It's hard for me to see.
So this should be equal though. But we did have to take some of this to balance.
Yeah, but that still keeps 4th through 7th, or no, it keeps Lewis through 7th, which I think is fine.
Yeah, sorry, Liz, can you restate the challenge there, what you're looking for, so everyone?
So we just needed to bring this fuchsia color district down in population because it was over 6% deviation. So we brought this down by changing this. We can actually, because this
So
has
you're there
no
now?
population in it, we can change that back to fuchsia.
Can you? There, yeah. I'm trying.
Yeah, so technically, I believe the only change we made was bringing this census block into green from fuchsia.
What block is that?
Is it in compliance now?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we still have 4 districts with Latino CVAP over 50%.
Okay. And we're calling this map B with, we calling this B or F?
I believe this is F.
Oh my God, I'm so confused.
Are you sure?
Yeah. It's 6 and then the other one.
This is now F? Okay.
Okay, everyone's in agreement that this is map F and that Councilmember Ramirez has suggested that we move forward with map F and map D, correct?
I'll go ahead and make a motion. We'll just throw it out there and then see where it lands. So I move that we move forward with map F and map D to make a determination next week.
Okay, I have a
2
motion.
weeks.
I'll
2
second.
weeks.
I have a motion and a second to move forward with map F and map D. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein.
Yes.
Councilmember Fugazi.
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton.
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Yes.
Mayor Bozo.
Yes. And to be clear, I'm sorry, map D, you mean with JH05 overlay. That's what we've been talking about the whole time. Okay.
That's D.
Okay. That's important to know. Okay, before moving on, I just want to make one more comment. I'm going to ask you to fill in a little bit. Just as we move forward, so now it's down to 2 maps. Now this is where we really get to engage with the public. Please reach out to us, public. We want to hear from you. We want to talk to you. And here's this might be a spoiler to some, and it might be a surprise to some. Remember, we're going to get through this in 2 weeks, and then take it over from here. And then in 2030,
We get to do it again.
we are going to do this again, correct? So for those who may not get everything they want today, get ready. It's coming at us again. And help me here, anybody. Much of the census that we're using now is based on 2020. So there are a few thousand people that live in parts of Gilroy, predominantly on the west side, whose population didn't even count yet. So expect some changes in a few years, but every 10 years, but this time in 5 years.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so districting happens a year after the census. So the whole reason for the census is so we can rebalance our population, whether that's congressional all the way down to special districts. So we will be revisiting this. And I do, as the mayor mentioned, I do highly recommend to the public, please email us. let us know which map you prefer, because your comments really do make an impact.
I have a question. To make it easy for the public, can we have all the other maps taken off and just these two left on the site?
So we can't take down the other maps, but we can put those two maps up as the ones being considered.
Okay, good. So it's
Yeah.
real clear to the public.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll disable the tool to create new maps so that people realize they cannot propose new maps.
So we can't take down the tool, but, we can,
Make it clear.
Yeah.
Make it clear. That's what we want. Make it clear. Big
Yeah.
font, giant font. Big. Yeah. Don't touch.
yeah, we are in the final stage at this point. And next time we will be discussing specifically sequencing. So we will get to that after you select a map. Because once you select a map, there's no going back once we start talking about sequencing.
Yeah, that was going to be my next comment, if maybe not the final comment, but thank you, Bill, for bringing up sequencing. Appreciate it. We're not just talking about which map in the next 2 weeks. We can also talk about sequencing. And those are the two most important things.
Residency.
Sequencing and residency. There's some conversations about residency in a new district, how long you need to live there before you can run in that district. For anyone who plans on moving soon. Any other comments or questions regarding this topic? All right, thank you very much.
Great.
Appreciate it. Am I going backwards? Which one? Back to 8.1. 8.1, thank you. Okay, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and we'll be back at 8 o'clock. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to get going again. Item number 8 is public hearings, 8.1. So this is the appeal of the Planning Commission's determination for architectural and site review and variance application for removal of an existing 35-foot monopole and installation of a 65-foot monopole and related equipment located at
401 First Street.
Thank you. 401 First Street. Application number AS24-14 and V24-01. Any disclosures by council? Ex parte communications? Okay, staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Crown Castle is before you this evening requesting approval of an appeal of the Planning Commission denial of a wireless facility at 401 First Street. And as you mentioned, these are applications AS2414 and V2401. This facility is located at the northwest corner of Hannah and First Street. The star on the map denotes the location of the site. This site plan gives a better depiction of the actual site. So this is First Street here along the bottom of the slide, and then Hannah Street on this side. This is an existing building that's on the site, and the existing wireless facility is located in this area that you see. It's a fenced-in area that you see shown on the plan. Currently, if you look at this elevation on the left-hand side of the slide, there's a 35-foot high monopole. And what the applicant wants to do is to replace that in the same location with a 65-foot high monopole. On the left-hand side of the slide, this is a photo of the existing monopole, which is in the location here. And then on the right-hand side, this is a photo simulation of what the new monopole will look like. And the perspective here is from the corner of First and Hannah. And here again on the left-hand slide, the existing monopole is here, and this is viewed from the property to the west of the site, and the new monopole will be here. So as part of the analysis of any wireless facility, we require a radio frequency study. And the applicant prepared the study and prepared this simulation of the radio frequency exposure. There are maximum levels of radio frequency exposure that are permitted by the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, and that's the maximum permissible exposure. That's what it's called. So what this slide is depicting is the areas that are in the gray and the green are areas that are safe levels of exposure. As the exposure increases, the color changes. So the blue, yellow, and red are exposure levels that would not be safe to expose people to. So what this slide is showing you is that this is the building, the existing building at the corner of First and Hannah, and this is the fenced-in area where the monopole, the current monopole is, and the new monopole will be. And it's showing you that the exposure is it's above the buildings that are on site. So the area where the exposure gets to a blue level is actually 49 feet above the paved area, so above the ground. So you wouldn't, a person wouldn't experience exposure to that level of radio frequency unless they were 49 feet above the ground. This slide is depicting the same data, just in a different way. This is a plan view. So on this slide, this is the building at First and Hannah. This is the area where the monopole will be constructed, and this is an office building that's at the back of the lot. So this, again, same color coding. The green areas are areas where exposure is safe. Blue is areas that wouldn't be safe for exposure, and then yellow and red. And what this is showing is that the blue exposure goes to a point of at 108 feet from the monopole, and once you get past 108 feet, then exposure levels at that point are safe. So putting these two slides together, the information is that the areas where people would need to be protected that exceed the maximum threshold that's allowed would be 49 feet above the ground and within 108 feet of the monopole. So the only real potential for exposure to those frequencies would be people who might be working in trees, like arborists, or maybe people who are working on poles or other equipment where they would be high above the ground. And there are safety protocols put in place to protect people who might be in those situations, and I will have the applicant speak to that issue. As part of this analysis, the applicant did look at alternative heights to determine what the minimum height they would need to get the coverage that they're trying to achieve. So the existing coverage is this on the left-hand side, this coverage map, and what it shows is that the coverage is spotty, it's minimal, it's not achieving what their goal is. And that's where equipment would be 32 feet above the ground. The pole itself is higher, but the equipment would be 32 feet above the ground. The applicant also looked at equipment 46 feet above the ground, and that definitely does increase the coverage area. It just isn't getting them quite where they need to be, and that's where they determined that they needed to have the 65-foot pole with the equipment at 60 feet above the ground, because that is providing the coverage that they're trying to achieve. So in looking at approving whether we could approve this wireless antenna or not, we had to look at the standards for the C1 Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District, which is the district that this project is located in. And the two issues we looked at were height and setbacks. The maximum height in the C1 zoning district is 35 feet. This is a 65-foot high monopole, so they do need a variance for height to achieve that the higher height that they want to get their coverage. The second issue is setbacks. The wireless section of the zoning ordinance requires setbacks to our wireless facility to match the height of the wireless facility. So in this case, because it's a 65-foot high monopole, it would have to be set back 65 feet from all property lines, side yard, front yard, and rear yard. And they can't achieve that on this lot. And so that's why they're asking for a variance. The current facility on site does comply with all FCC regulations and standards, and the proposed facility will as well. There will be no disturbance to the existing business operations or parking as a result of this facility. And again, having the higher antenna will provide greater coverage for the public and emergency services. Staff also reviewed the SCYTF, reviewed SCYTF to see if we could find an exemption for this project, and we were able to do that. And that is exemption through section 15303, which is class 3, and that is the small facilities exemption. One note that I do want to make when deliberating on this project is that the council will not be able to use radio frequency emissions from this facility as long as the emissions comply with the FCC radio frequency emissions regulations, and the emissions do comply with those regulations. So staff took this project to the Planning Commission on March 13th of 2025, and the Planning Commission made three motions on this project. The first was a motion to determine that the project is exempt from further environmental review pursuant to state SCYTF guidelines section 15303, which is class 3 that I just discussed, and that motion passed with a 6-0 vote. The second motion was to adopt a resolution approving architectural and site review permit application AS24-14. That motion failed due to a 3-3 vote. And the third was a motion to adopt a resolution approving variance permit application V2401, and that motion failed due to a 3-3 vote. At that time, the Assistant City Attorney advised that the Planning Commission's vote to approve AS24-14 and V2401 and their tie, the fact that they were tied 3-3, effectively was a denial of both of those applications. The Planning Commission did not make a motion to deny the project, so there were no findings of denial and no substantial evidence was stated to deny the project. So the applicant has submitted this appeal request, and they have four bases for their appeal. The first is that city staff recommended approval of AS24-14 and V2401 and found the project to be consistent with the general plan, compliant with zoning, categorically exempt from SCYTF, and compliant with FCC rules and regulations. In addition, the applications were reviewed by the Technical Advisory Committee, and staff is able to make the required findings. Second, no findings were made based on substantial evidence to deny the project as required by Section 332C7 of the 1996 Telecommunications Act. Third, denial of the project by the Planning Commission is in violation of Section 332C7 of the 1996 Telecommunications Act and may amount to a prohibition on the provision of personal wireless services. And fourth, comments made at the March 13, 2025 Planning Commission meeting suggest that the decisions made by the Planning Commission may have been impermissible under Section 332C7 of the 1996 Act. At this time, staff is recommending that the City Council grant the appeal of the Planning Commission's 3-3 tie vote, which resulted in denial of architectural and site review application AS24-14 and variance application V2401, and approve AS24-14 and V2401 to allow the removal of an existing 35-foot monopole and installation of a 65-foot monopole and related equipment located at 401 First Street, APN 79032-004. And staff is able to make all required architectural and site review and variance findings. There's also no substantial evidence that is known to justify denial of the project. I can answer any questions you have. The applicant is also here and is going to prepare a presentation, and they have brought a RF professional who can answer any technical questions that you may have.
Okay, we'll start with questions from council. Councilmember Ramirez?
I just have a quick question. So, I don't see a reason to deny it, but I'm wondering if it would be a request or if it could be put into the motion that there be some kind of, this made into a tree like some of these towers are, so that it's just not as sore of a sight?
Well, they did look at that. That actually would increase the height of the structure. And because there are no other trees in the area, at least from a staff perspective, we actually think it would make it more visible than the single monopole.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilmember Fugazzi.
So camouflaging it with a tree would look strange, stranger than most of the other gigantic redwoods that sit in the middle of nowhere in Gilroy?
I guess, it's a matter of opinion. So it's something they could certainly do if you want them to, if you think that it would look better.
So the variants or variances that are on here, if I wanted to have a 95-foot pole on this spot, you'd think that was okay too?
So it would have to meet FCC regulations.
Right.
And if it met FCC regulations, I don't know that we could deny it, but I would actually want to defer to the city attorney on that issue.
Yeah, I think the answer is it would depend on, and the applicant can speak to that as well, it would depend on their showing of necessity to provide the personal, the kind of cellular phone coverage that this monopole is designed to provide. And it would depend on what kind of report they could produce that would demonstrate that.
But wouldn't that also depend on not just their desire to expand their services, but whether it aligns with our general plan and our goals on the general plan?
In a general sense, yes. However, to the extent that it is necessary to provide certain antenna structures for these phones, that can end up trumping the general plan with respect to the height limitation and location as well. So.
Right, but I guess my question is, I agree, but my question would be whether it is their want to expand or a need, that whether the city has a need of expansion. Like, is there an area, if there's an area that's not getting coverage for whatever reason and we need that, versus we want to have we want to be able to market that our service provider has a bigger area in Gilroy or whatever.
Well, I think the applicant, again, can speak to that. There are cases dealing with, for example, the issue of, well, what if there are two other carriers that have coverage, but these people don't? And my understanding is the cases say that they have a right to do it as well, even though there may be coverage elsewhere and by other carriers.
I still have more questions. But yes, that helped clarify it a little bit. Thank you, Andy. Did I read in the report also that other carriers could use this same pole? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they can, and that is something that we would seek to accomplish.
So it'd become uglier, is what you're saying?
Co-location, yes.
It would become uglier because it'd have more antennas on
no.
it?
No, I'm not saying it would become uglier, but there would be additional antennas on it.
But you have to add more antennas and more stuff on it, right? So it would
antennas.
become more visible up there where it is.
Yeah.
Which to me also necessitates more camouflage than less camouflage. If we would want to have more coverage, I love cell coverage. I love great cell coverage. I'm not opposed to it at all. It only happens to be that right in that bend, and there's nothing else, and there's nothing else that big, and it stares you right in the face when you look at any of this stuff. So I think the camouflage thing is definitely, and I know other cities have required this as well as part of their accepting it within the city.
Go ahead, Councilmember Hilton.
Yeah, when the applicant comes up, I would love to hear more about the camouflage too, because I am in support of that. And same thing. I'm fine if it needs to be taller, bigger, add more on there. That's totally, completely fine. But I'm 100% comfortable with it looking like a tree and camouflaging it. I mean, in the mountain areas, you see that all the time on the freeway if you look off to the side.
Depends on where it is,
I'm
if
all
it does
for
or
it.
not.
Further comments for staff before we go to public comment? Okay, do we have, I'm sorry.
Let me mention that we have worked out a procedure and told the applicant that their process would be that they get to go for 10 minutes, then public gets to comment, and then they have 5 minutes rebuttal if they need it.
Okay, so would we like the applicant to go first?
Yes.
And they have up to 10 minutes if they would like it or need it. And then we will go to public comment if we have any.
Good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Emily Murray. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Allen Matkins, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. I'm joined by Anthony Handley here in the audience, who is Director of Engineering with Infra Services, who prepared the RF report that you have in your packet. As you've heard, and I did want to take a minute to thank staff very much for working with us and for their presentation. As you've heard tonight, the subject project is to remove the existing 35-foot pole and install a 65-foot monopole and related equipment. My presentation is really focused on the legal basis for our appeal, and I'll keep it pretty short. I know you've had a long night already, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. So the first basis for the appeal is the failure of the Planning Commission to make the denial findings. And as you've heard, because they had a split vote, 3-3, it was an effective denial, but not a vote to deny. So there were no findings made to support that decision. The city code itself requires that decisions to deny a permit be supported by in writing with the reasons for that decision, and that's backed up by the Federal Telecommunications Act, which, as you've heard tonight, in some circumstances preempts some certain actions of local government. The Telecom Act requires that decisions to deny a request have to be in writing and supported by substantial evidence. To the contrary to the denial, the draft findings presented in the staff report recommended approval and were supported by substantial evidence. There was no finding of an environmentally sensitive habitat, resources, properties in the vicinity that would be impacted, and the height of the monopole relative to the surrounding uses and the zoning makes this an ideal site for maximizing the public benefit and substantially increasing coverage, as you saw earlier in the coverage maps prepared by T-Mobile. Just briefly on the RF emissions seem to be a significant concern in the Planning Commission meeting. There were a number of questions and comments concerning the report that was prepared demonstrating FCC compliance. This is one of those areas where the Federal Telecom Act preempts to some extent the actions of local government. So essentially, if you can demonstrate that you're in compliance with the FCC regulations, then the Federal Act prevents or prohibits the local government from making decisions on that basis. We do have that report demonstrating FCC compliance, and Anthony's here this evening if you have questions on that front. Our request of the council is a reversal of the Planning Commission decision. I think on bullet point number 2 that decision was actually upvoted by the Planning Commission and not part of the appeal. So the SCYTF piece was already approved, and we're asking that you approve the entitlements that were denied by the Planning Commission. I'd be happy to take questions, but I wasn't sure if we wanted to do public comment and then come back, or how would you like to handle that?
Well, I think the council asked some specific questions about the camouflaging or
yeah.
Well, camouflage, I guess, is a word they can use.
Yeah, so stealth or camouflage in particular. So that would be, the site is designed as called a monopole, so it's just a pole, no lattice structure. I believe that the question was asked of the applicant before the Planning Commission whether the site could be designed as a tree, and the sort of technological concerns that were raised at that point it would need to be substantially higher to support the camouflaging both above and below the antennas. The camouflage, in my experience, also requires that the antennas be located further out from the pole, so it just makes for a more massive facility. It has to be taller, it has to be broader. There was some concern about the overhang on the existing facility, the building that's located underneath the facility, and that the branching of a faux tree or other facility would overhang that structure and be a concern from that front. So, and then I think the thinking, and obviously reasonable minds can differ on this one, was that in the absence of any other trees surrounding the facility, that having a non-stealth facility was less visually obtrusive than the alternative. I don't know, Anthony, if you had anything particular on camouflage that you would want to add from a technical front, but if not, I can.
I do know that the monopoles that are designed.
Can you get closer to the mic, please?
They're designed with galvanized steel, which is meant to blend in with the natural colors of the sky as it changes throughout the seasons. It's made with galvanized steel, which it blends in with the sky. So eventually, you won't even notice it's there. That's the idea of it. But when you do camouflage it, like the attorney said, it does get taller and it will get wider. It will be a much larger structure than just a monopole with the antennas on it.
Can you tell us, like, 2 feet taller, 20 feet taller, 20 feet wider, 80 feet wider? I mean, can you give us some kind of an idea of how much bigger, how much wider?
I mean, off the top of my head, I'm gonna guess it's probably maybe like 10 feet taller, and you might be getting maybe 10 to 20 feet wider.
Depends on the design. It would certainly been helpful to have renderings that showed, that as well as the kind of decision that we're making and most cities make when they're looking at these in terms of the stealthing and whatnot. I definitely would love to have seen that, or it would have been easy to put together for sure.
Any further comments? Councilmember Hilton, did you say you have some? So
this is a public hearing, so now open it to the public.
Okay, let's go to public comment, please.
We do not have any speakers.
Thank you. Okay, we're right back at it. Go ahead, Councilmember Bracco first.
Yeah, looking at the different ways this can be done, I would rather look at just the pole sticking up than seeing it with the tree. I have one by my place that has the tree on there, and it's hideous looking. Before they put the branches and stuff on it, you didn't even notice it was there, and now it just sticks out. So I would prefer not to go with trying to make it look like a tree, which they never do look like a tree. They tried to make it look like a tree. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
I have a question. I know one of the concerns was, or is, by the picture that we got, it has very few antennas, if that's what we're calling them now. And I think that's a concern, is what about the future? Do you have any idea? Because right now it looks like, what is there, 3 or something on there? Can there be 40 one day?
No. Am I okay for sound?
I believe so.
So we're required to submit with the application basically a letter saying that we would permit co-location on the facility. So there's a blank on my word. There's a presumption in favor of having more carriers on one facility as opposed to a proliferation of poles. I represent Crown Castle, which is the owner of the pole. T-Mobile is the owner of the antennas. There is no plan at this point for there to be any other, there's no application. There are no other carriers asking to be on this pole, but we're required to permit them if they come forward and would want to locate additional equipment on the tower. But at this point, it's just one.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Is there a limit to how many can be, like technically a limit to how many can be added to it?
So technologically, yes, they call it the rad center of the antenna, and they have to be a certain distance apart from one another to function. So I believe that so we're at 65 feet. I think the rad center would be below 60. The next carrier would probably be at about 45 or 50 feet. And then below that, they're really not getting any coverage. So it would be possible to put another carrier or 2 carriers on this facility, but I would say pretty unlikely because you just wouldn't get coverage from those lower antennas.
So a couple follow-up questions. So first of all, and maybe this is an Andy question. So since another carrier can come, right, if they were to come to us like you are and say, hey, we want a 65-foot pole over here, Andy, are we able to tell them, hey, no, we've already got this pole over here and you have to utilize that one first, so this is kind of a benefit that we only have one?
Yes, I believe we can.
Okay.
Yeah. And they would have to study that, and
Understood.
convince us that it's wrong for some reason, but probably wouldn't be wrong.
Fair enough. And so to follow up on what you just said, now we're not talking about a couple things at the top. If they did do that, you're talking about now another group of things below that, say 10 or 20 feet below that, right?
So yeah, if another carrier filed an application, it would be another discretionary process with the city, but it would.
And we would have to allow it.
Yeah, it would be an application for co-location onto this facility, and they would have their antennas some appropriate amount of space below the existing antennas. Again, there's no pending application, but that would be how that process
And
would
at that
unfold.
point, we wouldn't be able to go like, hey, no, you need to do it stealth. We need to decide stealth now if we were going to have stealth.
I think you could decide stealth later. It is possible to retrofit facilities for stealth design at a future point. So when that application came forward, that could be something you could consider at that time as well.
Okay, last question is probably for Andy, I guess, which is it unreasonable if some on the council wanted to see revised renderings with these various things that we talked about to punt this to another meeting?
I don't think it's unreasonable. I'd ask the applicant, there is something called a shot clock, which is a timing problem. I assume the applicant would not object to that request. I don't know if that's the case. I should ask them.
So there's a 150-day shot clock for the approval. The denial essentially happened right at the shot clock. So it currently we're denied and on appeal. It would obviously be our preference to be heard this evening, but if the item is continued.
I guess we did take action within the shot clock time. It
Yes.
was a strange action, but we did take it at the Planning Commission level. So I guess the answer to your question then, Councilmember Fugazi, is you could request the applicant to come back in 2 weeks or whatever with some attempt at camouflaging.
Is that something we want to do?
It's what I would suggest to do in terms of for the public and understanding, and Dion's concern is, well noted that when we look at it, and the rest of us just the same way, at least I was stunned by seeing this nice little monopole that was there, and now there's this huge thing that's going to be there, and it may be worse, as Dion says, but maybe it's not, and maybe have another rendering that shows somebody else with their, antennas on there and maxed out, whatever maxed out is for it, so that we have a really good understanding of where this thing could go and what it could be, and then we go, you know what, we need to have a cell tower, it's going to be better the way Dion says, and that's it. So I will move that we ask the applicant to come back to us with renderings of all of the different options and maximizing that we had, and put it on a future agenda item to make a final decision.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Can I interrupt? Should we ask the applicant whether you can come back in a specified time, like 2 weeks from now? Or I'm not sure how long this will take.
Yeah, and I guess this was not something we were asked to look at previously, so I also would want to reserve our, any argument that we might have that stealth either can't be required or isn't appropriate at this location. But I would think if we could get back on the next, I know the applicant wants to move forward as quickly as we can, so if we can get on a council agenda soon.
The next agenda is 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks?
The 19th. And then
I don't see any reason that we can't, could we, if for some reason we can't make that happen with our Sims people, can we request a further continuance at that point?
Yeah, I would suggest that in the motion be to continue the matter to May 19th, subject to the applicant telling us at least 5 days ahead of that time, let's say, that they need more time, in which case it could be continued indefinitely.
I'm good with that.
All right.
So moved?
So
And that will
moved.
be
So moved.
And
Thank
still
you.
seconded.
Okay. So I have a motion. That new motion is going to come from you, Councilmember Fugazi, if that's okay, and a second from Councilmember Ramirez, that we are going to, help me out here, Andy, again, please.
Continue the appeal until the May 19th meeting, subject to, if the applicant lets us know within no later than 5 days before that meeting, then we would take it off that agenda and it would be an open continuance until it's rescheduled.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bracco.
No.
Councilmember Klein.
No.
Councilmember Fugazi.
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton.
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Yes.
Mayor Boto.
Yes. Motion passes 5-2.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 9, unfinished business. 9.1, food truck ordinance update. Staff report, please.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. My name is Victoria Valencia, Economic Development Manager for the City of Gilroy, here to provide an update on the food truck ordinance. This evening, council is being asked to receive the report, review the proposed amendments to Chapter 16A, Article 2, and provide staff direction. Council is also being asked to consider adoption of a resolution for a pilot program allowing food trucks to operate in specified downtown zones, one being the 5th Street lot, which is next to Gardner Health Center, portions of Eagleberry Street, and or designated parking lots adjacent to Gourmet Alley. At the December 4th, 2023 council meeting, the council directed staff to review the ordinance and regulations for food trucks in neighboring cities and examine flexible location options and specific locations food trucks could operate. At the August 19th, 2024 City Council meeting, council further directed staff to explore designated locations in the downtown area for food trucks to operate. 2 primary locations were identified. One was the city-owned parking lot at 5th and Monterey, known as the 5th Street lot, and again, the Gardner Health Center lot. The next was street parking along Eagleberry Street. People are really excited about food trucks out there. All right, currently, Gilroy City Code Chapter 16A, Article 2 governs mobile vending, including food trucks, and requires vendors to move at least 100 feet every 10 minutes, while also prohibiting such operations in C1, C2, C3 commercial zoning districts. The ordinance defines a mobile vending facility broadly to include any container, cart, stand, vehicle, or wagon displaying or selling food, goods, or services. And then this next slide here. Here's a breakdown of mobile vendors versus sidewalk vending. Sidewalk vending is governed by Article 16B, while mobile vending is 16A. Mobile vending applies to all mobile vendors operating in the city of Gilroy, both with motorized carts or vehicles and non-motorized, whereas the sidewalk vending ordinance only applies to non-motorized vending facilities. Mobile vendors applies again to all, so operating on public or private property. They're not permitted on private property except with written permission from the property owner, and it requires a background check and fingerprinting, which is known as our identity permit. Sidewalk vendors, they are allowed to operate on public sidewalks, pedestrian pathways, parks, or other public property as long as they go through our sidewalk vending ordinance or sidewalk vending application process, and they're not permitted on bike paths, streets, driveways, or public parking lots, and the identity permit is not a requirement. All food vendors operating and vending in the city of Gilroy are required to have a County of Santa Clara Health Department permit, seller's permit, and a City of Gilroy business license, and all businesses, whether located in or outside of the city, conducting business transactions or operations within the city, are required to obtain a business license. In reviewing the various regulations, staff identified some inconsistencies between local definitions that are included in 16A and 16B, and determined that further updates would need to be made to align with the California Retail Code. One of these definitions is mobile vending. 16B, which is the sidewalk vending ordinance, defines mobile vending as a motorized mobile vending vehicle, whereas 16A just defines it very broadly as any mobile vending device. So it includes cart stands and non-motorized or motorized vehicles. The California Retail Code defines a mobile food facility as a truck, trailer, or other wheeled equipment from which food is sold, and a compact mobile food operation as a push cart. So their compact mobile food operation is more in line with our sidewalk vending definition, whereas their mobile food facility would be what we refer to as a mobile vending facility. Staff recommends adopting standardized language from the California Retail Code, just so that way we're consistent from the state level down to the local level. The zoning codes would also need to be updated. C1, C2, and C3 are outdated, and staff would recommend updating the codes to the existing zoning codes, which includes the neighborhood commercial, which is now known as C1, downtown specific plan area, professional office, shopping center commercial, and commercial industrial. And I do have Melissa Durkin here with our planning team, who, if there are any questions related to zoning, she'd be better suited to answer those. The current code also has a time limit. If you all remember, it's limited currently to 10 minutes, and then vendors need to move along. This is typical for ice cream trucks, but may not be feasible for food trucks or those who are providing health services. A couple of considerations. The County of Santa Clara Department of Environmental Health requires restrooms and hand washing sinks for food facilities operating longer than 1 hour. Another consideration is a tiered permit framework with various time requirements. And this is something that the City of Hollister has, so we could look at something similar to that. Under the proposed amendments, in addition to a City of Gilroy business license and any other permits required by the county, state, or other government agency, mobile vendors, excluding sidewalk vendors already permitted under Chapter 16B, would be required to obtain an identity permit / mobile vending permit. This is something that we currently have, and this takes 1 to 3 weeks to process. There's an initial $158 application fee with an $82 renewal. Through this process, our staff is able to confirm the operator's identity and background, and there's a background check, live scan that might be required, which incurs an additional fee. And this exclusions apply if the operator is a Gilroy resident of at least 5 years and owns a permanent business facility in Gilroy. There would also be a temporary vending permit required for any vendors operating on private property. This would look like a 1 to 2 week processing time. The current fees that we have are $1,662 per minor event. An example of that would be flower sales over Mother's Day weekend, typically limited to 3 days, or $2,243 for up to 30 days, up to 4 times a year at a specific site. Right now, these vendors go through our temporary use permit process to operate on private property. All right, getting specific to downtown, based on the draft revised ordinance with the updated codes, food trucks would not be allowed to operate in downtown without a resolution by the City Council. The following are the areas that Council directed staff to research as possible locations. One was the 5th Street lot, which again is between Gardner Health Center and CMAP. The next was Eagleberry, and the final was Gourmet Alley and adjacent parking lots. And this one was actually a recommendation from the Downtown Committee. All right, so staff evaluated the various zones, and here's a quick breakdown of each. A couple of things to keep in mind. All of the areas above might require posted signage and a restroom agreement or portable toilets if allowed for longer than 1 hour. Jumping to the 5th Street lot, this could be designated for food truck parking during certain times. This would require a closure of the parking lot and a closure of the left turn lane to make it safe for food trucks to get into that lot. The next was Eagleberry Street, which does have parallel curb parking available. The size of some food trucks could pose safety hazards for pedestrians and vehicles, though. And the final was Gourmet Alley and the adjacent parking lots. There are 2 parking lots that are adjacent to Gourmet Alley, and I went out with our Public Works Director, and we were able to find at least 2 to 3 locations in each lot that could be suitable for a food truck to operate in without impacting the flow of traffic in the lot. Food trucks could also be allowed to operate on private property along Gourmet Alley with the temporary vending permit. There are several private lots along there. Staff did take a look at Having the food trucks parked directly in Gourmet Alley, that was one of the recommendations that came from the downtown committee. However, Gourmet Alley is intended to be a pedestrian-friendly space, and we thought adding food trucks would deter pedestrians from hanging out in that space. A couple other considerations, council could consider to allow food trucks to operate by right in certain areas in downtown. Staff could post signage, allow first come, first serve for these trucks, or we could also develop a program to schedule food trucks, and council may consider funding for an external organization to manage the coordination of that. All right, so going back to the recommendation for tonight, one is to receive the report, review the proposed amendments to Chapter 16A, Article 2, and provide staff direction. And the next is to consider adoption of a resolution for a pilot program allowing food trucks to operate in specified downtown zones, which again were the 5th Street lot, portions of Eagleberry, and or designated parking lots adjacent to Gourmet Alley. And with that, that concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Victoria, I have some questions for you.
Sure.
It wasn't until I read the resolution that it was very clear that we were asking for no food trucks on Monterey Street, but there is no designation from one block, from what block do we start to the other. And I thought the downtown committee said 4th to 7th. Correct me, by committee members? Was I wrong? Am I wrong? Or is that correct? From 4th to 7th, no food trucks on Monterey Road. Okay, and that's not in the resolution. It should be. Do you want to go ahead and put hours in? That's a consideration for the council to say it. And what days of the week? Do we want it 7 days a week? I thought we talked about just Friday, Saturday.
Yep, so
whatever you want. But these have to be in this resolution so it's clear. Plus, we also have to consider shutting down of those parking lots, because they also hold customers for the restaurants. Do we want to have just one parking lot designated for the food trucks or both? I don't know if we want both.
Sure, so that's what staff is looking for direction on, and again, this is just a draft resolution. Down under the now therefores, there are some more specific dates, times. So this draft resolution states May through October 2025, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays between the hours of 5 p.m. and 10 p.m., excluding days when special events are scheduled within the downtown specific plan area, which is from 1st to 10th.
So then after October, no food trucks, period, not even in the parking lots, or would you allow them to return to Monterey?
It would be council's direction at that point. So the goal here is to provide an option and entertain a pilot program. So with the draft ordinance updates, it wouldn't allow for any food trucks in downtown, which is what the original C1, C2, and C3 didn't allow for.
Was suggesting. To get this draft going, is it possible to have this done by June? Because the restaurants down there really want no food trucks. And I don't want to see this going on throughout the summer and nothing gets resolved, especially when this idea started in December of 2023. This is really long. Now, something else happened Friday night down here. Promised Land brought in a flatbed truck with a band on it that took up quite a few parking places. This is the first time, to my knowledge, that has happened. Now, one of the reasons why downtown did not want to have food trucks is because of the parking spaces that were being taken away. If tap rooms or restaurants start bringing in flatbed trucks for bands, taking up those spaces, we're back in the same situation. Do we want to include this in the ordinance of no flatbed trucks taking away parking places downtown?
I'd say I think that would be a separate issue than food trucks specifically. And I will say
exactly. It's already illegal.
But no one stopped it.
Well,
they were very successful Friday night. So maybe that's something for code enforcement now to be going down there to look at. Okay. I don't know. Downtown committee members, anything else that we should add?
I believe there's more comments. Councilmember Klein.
Okay.
Thank you. Question, you mentioned parking on Eagleberry is parallel, but actually between the entrance of both parking lots, that's against the curb. So could you not consider that both between 5th and 6th, but also between 4th and 5th as having, because it's natural to have them park against the curb. People can walk right up to it. I'm more inclined to support that and not taking up space. I mean, we saw what we went through with the construction of those parking lots and taking away parking spaces, and I just don't see the value of that if we have room on the street against the curb to park them, both of them, both 4th and 5th. And as far as the 5th Street lot, or excuse me, oh gosh.
That's what it's called, 5th Street.
The Gardner?
Gardner, yes, yes.
5th Street.
5th Street. I wouldn't even consider that because I think, again, you're bringing them onto Monterey into there and filter them there. I think in trying to energize and really make the Gourmet Alley life there, you want the food trucks on Eagleberry to that side of Monterey. You don't want them in Monterey. We want, and actually, I'd look to have nothing on Monterey. You could say from 10th Street to 1st Street as far as food trucks, but that's just another conversation about that. I know we're talking about specifically downtown, but I think really, in my view of things, Eagleberry is the perfect spot for that, and it gets everything done, and you're not impacting parking. So, just my thoughts.
I want one comment before I go to Councilmember Fugazi and Bracco. I believe you said downtown is defined by 1st through 10th. Did you not say that?
The downtown specific
Okay.
area covers 1st through 10th.
Okay.
And
Okay.
one reminder, before it went down to the downtown committee, it was council direction to not allow food trucks to continue on Monterey Road. However, it was pending any sort of update to the code.
Okay. Councilmember Bracco.
Yes, Victoria, you said 10 o'clock at night they have to close down?
Yes, it was just a suggestion at this point, just a starting point, based on when I went out and spoke with the breweries and tap rooms. They all said typically when they have food trucks is Thursday through Saturday from around 5 to 9, 6 to 10. And then I think there were two who tend to invite them on Sundays as well.
Now, what about there's some food trucks that they park on private property, like at the tire shop and stuff. Would they be bound by the same rules?
They would, under the mobile vending permit.
Because you have bars that are open till 2 o'clock in the morning. I would think you'd want to let them serve the food a little later than that.
Yep, so that would be under that temporary vending permit. So if they're operating on private property, they would submit a temporary vending application where they would submit their hours of operation, and it would go to our planning team to review and approve.
Well, I'm talking about all of them.
On
the
private,
ones
public?
in the alley or whatever.
Sure.
Just to help the businesses that want them there, that they have longer hours because people come out drunk and they want to get something to eat.
Well, I'll have a comment about that. I know others have comments as well. I believe there's a difference between allowing a bar to set up a food station outside, which is an extension of their own business per se, as opposed to food trucks after food trucks after food trucks setting up in businesses that have nothing to do whatsoever with food service. And I just want to be cautioned, that's something I cannot support and do not want to support, the idea that any business can set up rental of their parking lot to set up another business that they don't have a use permit for or they don't have a permit for. Just my comments. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for that, because I'm in very much agreement with that. These businesses, I would suspect, all have conditional use permits that allow them to do the type of business that they do so that it fits in with whatever our planning is and however we want to see the city grow. And setting up a giant restaurant in a tire shop thing just doesn't seem to coincide well with that. The private, again, you say they have to comply, so they would also have to comply with the 1 hour kind of thing if they didn't have restrooms and whatnot. Just wanted to make sure. You mentioned background checks. So anybody who would get the permit would have to have a background check unless they were here for 5 years or something, and then they don't need to get a background check?
Yeah, and that's written into our code. It's established if they've established residency.
So if they have a residency, we don't care if they're a child molester? Like, that's what that sounds like to me. Is
Sure,
like,
I can't speak to that.
So, speaking to that, if we get a background check back, what are we rejecting people on?
Let me see if
I mean, you do the background check and you go, oh.
But I thought that it was written that they had to have 5-year residency, but also a business, which wouldn't that
Was it
do
an
a
and?
background check? Maybe I read it wrong.
I don't remember if it was an and or
I thought it was an and. Yeah.
And a business.
And a business.
And wouldn't that business license do a background check? No?
No, they would not. The provision for background check, again, originates from ice cream trucks that tend to attract children. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's a bit antiquated.
So if we
And just-
continue it, though, what are we looking for? Considering this is now old and it was made for ice cream trucks, we're now making it new and deciding to possibly keep some of these things under recommendation. If we did do background checks on these people as part of what you put together, what would we look for?
What would disqualify them?
Yeah, what would disqualify them? Thank you.
Yeah, I can't speak to the identity permit side. I will add, though, that mobile vendors aren't just food trucks. This also applies to the door-to-door salesmen, Girl Scouts, operating on private property. So I can't speak to what exactly we'd look for outside of the identity permit.
But it already exists right now,
That does
right?
already exist.
And there has to be some protocol, I would assume, for when we do a background check, what we decide on. So nobody knows that. Okay.
One moment. I also have
Okay.
Luke Powell with our police department
Excellent.
here.
So hopefully I can clarify. So when we do the background check, we look for criminal history to see if there are restrictions and identify what those restrictions might be. So if they are a sex registrant, what the restrictions are with that, and then that would give us cause for rejecting that permit, if that makes any sense. So you mentioned the sex registrant, they would be disqualified.
But if I had 2 grand theft autos on my record, it would be okay.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
No, I answered that question. Okay.
Do you have the other one?
I have a
Councilman?
couple more.
Okay.
So if on 5th Street parking lot, you said you'd have to close the left turn lane, I believe. And that'd be permanent or only when there was an event, or that would be permanently?
Only whenever council directs for staff to post signage, or if someone wanted to host a special event where they have food trucks there, then we would set up traffic control for that. And that's the left turn lane needs to be closed, because you wouldn't believe it, but even if there's an event occurring, people still try to turn into that parking lot. So it would be a safety measure.
Yeah, and I mean, just as feedback, I'm not opposed, as council member Klein is, to that particular parking lot. I think that it's a great trade-off for what some of the businesses who have them in front right now is not there. And I think that if the city, and certainly what you do with business development and whatnot, were to put together a smarter way of bringing food trucks in and create a food truck corral or something like that on a regular basis, especially through our warmer months, it would actually be really invigorating for overall downtown, with also not necessarily competing out with all the rules and regulations that we'd have to have. Sorry, I'm going on long. I think that's it.
Okay, Victoria, I just want to clarify something, because within the last 10 minutes, I've heard 2 different things. Originally, I heard that between 1st and 10th, we would have no food trucks, and then all of a sudden, I start hearing about food trucks on private property, which would affect, some of the businesses. Which one is it? Because I want it really clear when this comes back.
We're giving her guidance tonight, so you can give her guidance of what you would
then
like to see or not like to see.
I would like to stick with between 1st and 10th, no food trucks, period.
Okay. Including private property.
Including private property.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Just 2 quick things. I do not recall seeing anything in there about a requirement of making sure that they clean up afterwards, and if they do not, then it disqualifies them from returning.
Sure, we could include that. We have some standard
That's a great
language
point.
that we use in our sidewalk
That's
vending.
one I actually had written down that I forgot on, which is if there is a violator, either they don't have a permit, right, and we've told them, hey, move along until you get a permit, and they violate multiple times, that they can basically, now they have to take a break for a year or a year and a half or 2 years or whatever it is that seems reasonable, or like other cities, that you now can't vend in the city.
So that's the one thing. And then the second thing is, I really would like to, encourage council to direct staff to explore some type of, like Terrence said, third Thursday of the month, food trucks can come down here and it's a food truck frenzy or whatever. I've seen that in a couple of different places that has proven to be very successful, and
Just volunteers.
Right. Where would you want it, council member? I mean, a parking lot, not downtown, right?
not on Monterey
Oh,
Street,
okay.
for sure.
Okay, so
Not
you have
on Monterey
parking lot
Street.
wherever.
Yeah, 5th Street parking lot or 7th Street parking lot or somewhere. Christmas Hill Park, I don't, wherever. But I just would like to encourage that, the exploration of that.
I have an idea. I think that we are not ready for a pilot program. I think we need to ask staff to go back and take our input tonight and continue the conversation on the pilot program as fast as humanly possible. I know you want that. But before we do that, do we have any public comment?
We have no speakers at this time.
Okay, so back to staff. Is everybody okay with that idea? We're not taking any action tonight. And do you have a comment?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to have Victoria or Captain Powell answer this. What tools do we have right now in our codes and in such to enforce food truck activity? Because that is a question I get asked about. What are the rules and what are we allowing right now? Is it because we have incompatible codes and things like that? So I know Victoria spent a lot of time on this. So if you could just tell the council. Please.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to this slide where we talked about the differences between mobile vending, sidewalk vending, this down here, all food vendors operating need to have City of one more time. All food vendors operating and vending in the City of Gilroy are required to have their County of Santa Clara Health Department permit, seller's permit, and City of Gilroy business license. Also, businesses, whether they're located in or outside of the city, so regardless of a food permit, if they don't have a City of Gilroy business license, we can ask them to move along.
There's no insurance on this one, but there is for sidewalk vendors. Is that correct?
It's something we would require.
Okay, because it wasn't on here. That's why I asked.
So, you have another question or comment?
I just wanted to make clear, there are tools available right now, because the discussion from Councilmember Marks is that you didn't want to wait till July or August. So we do have tools in place that allow us to enforce this. But much like sidewalk vending before, we had not.
And how frequently are these food trucks checked for all of these permits?
They're not. That's what I just said. We have not done any enforcement.
Oh, you haven't done any of
No.
this?
And the reason for not doing any enforcement was because the first time this was brought to council was because we were going to be doing enforcement, and council directed staff not to do enforcement. The county has been around for the last week or two and doing enforcement on various businesses and food trucks. So I know we are on their radar, but it would be council direction to
Can I make a
move
motion
forward.
to say
Not yet.
Not
Sorry,
yet?
hold on a second.
Okay.
I think there's more comments. Sorry.
All right.
The other thing that is the most egregious is the parking situation, which also I think is probably the easiest and most to enforce when you have people parking across diagonals and in places for long periods of time that they shouldn't. And I think if in the interim, as we're trying to figure all of this out, the more of that we can have, especially as we go into these warmer months, would be indicative of the spirit of what we're trying to do here on the council without having it done yet. Just a thought.
I have a further comment. Sorry. Back to private property owners. It seems like it's ambiguous. And I know that sometimes is part of the challenge. Right here it says, not permitted on private property except with written permission from the property owner. Except what we talked about earlier is that if you are selling furniture in a business, you have a use permit, a conditional use permit from the City of Gilroy that I don't believe includes that you can rent out your parking space to anybody.
Correct.
And that's what I would like to know is, can we enforce that immediately? Because even though the property owner might say it's okay, if we don't approve it with a business license, then they shouldn't be there. Am I close?
We've given them license to vend there.
So just a
We've given
reminder,
who?
this is what's in the current ordinance.
Okay.
Not permitted on private property except written permission. What we're proposing and what they're supposed to do is go through our temporary use permit process, which was those other fees I showed you. If they don't go through that process, then we can ask them to move along.
And that would be
Private
through code
property and
enforcement or PD?
It would be a collaboration between the departments, and then if food's involved, Department of Health would also be
The
involved.
challenge with that is that we're waiting for them to come when they can come. Like that's what we do not want to do, is wait for enforcement.
Can't that just be taken out of the verbiage with, the exception with written permission from property owner? That just be taken out?
We can make no exceptions. It would be council direction.
Well, this is the direction we're giving.
Right.
We can't do it right now, but we can give that direction.
Or we
Greg,
give that direction to have it taken out?
If I may paraphrase kind of what I think Greg's getting at, which is if at the tire shop somebody set up this unauthorized restaurant, okay, there, that it should be relative good priority that code enforcement goes out and says you can't be there, and if they don't decide to move, that PD comes in and says move along. And that's really what I think a lot of us have been getting at for a while. That's kind of the way, because we're seeing this pop up all over the city.
So you were interested in a motion?
In a motion,
Yeah.
right, okay. We've already given you direction to work on the main, but I'd like to see something get started right away with these food trucks. So I'd like to make a motion that says, I'm going to lift it right from this last paragraph that's on the screen. Do I need to read all of it, or can I just say the last paragraph on the screen? All food vendors operating and vending in the city of Gilroy are required to have a County of Santa Clara Health Department permit, seller's permit, and city of Gilroy business license. And then all businesses, whether located in or outside of the city, conducting business transactions or operations within the city, are required to obtain a city business license.
These are all things that currently exist.
Well, okay, it exists, but I'm hearing that code enforcement's not enforcing.
So then the motion is
the motion is
enforcement.
let's start enforcing now.
Councilmember Marks, I could even make a simpler motion for
Oh,
you.
good, thank you.
The city council is directing the city administrator to enforce the
Okay.
codes and regulations affiliated with food trucks that are currently in our ordinances. That's as
Sounds good.
clear as direction as I can get from you.
That's perfect, great. Do we have a second?
I'll second
Okay.
Carol's kind of
moved
motion.
The motion that Councilmember Marks made in conjunction with some assistance, and a second by Councilmember Ramirez. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein.
Yes.
Councilmember Fugazi.
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton.
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Yes.
Mayor Bozo.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you,
All right, thank you.
Yep. Got that going.
Moving on to item number 10, introduction of new business. Item 10.1, receive draft community development block grant 2025 through 2030, consolidated plan and program year 25-26, annual action plan, and provide direction on 2025-2026 funding allocations. Staff, please. Sharon.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the community. Tonight we're providing a report on CDBG and seek council feedback and direction on the things you just noted. So for some background, try to squeeze in a lot of information on this slide. For some quick background, CDBG is administered by the Department of Housing and Urban Development of the federal government. All CDBG-funded activities must meet a national objective, and the City of Gilroy has been using CDBG to benefit low and moderate income persons. Every year, the city receives CDBG funding from HUD. to receive CDBG funding, we are required to prepare a consolidated plan every 5 years. And typically, people just call it comp plan for short. A comp plan identifies the city's priority housing and community development needs and goals. And these needs and goals are gathered and developed through extensive community engagement efforts, which include citizen participation, stakeholder consultations, focus groups, individual interviews, community meetings, and a resident and stakeholder survey. Later on, you will see that our housing team conducted extensive community outreach where we got 563 survey responses out of 1,659 total response countywide. So Gilroy accounted for 34% out of the countywide survey responses. The 5-year comp plan is implemented through 5 annual action plans. So we're going to start a new 5-plan year beginning July 1st. So this 25 to 26 annual action plan, that's the first year of the 5-year process. And this year 1 annual action plan is contained within the comp plan document. The annual action plan outlines the funding allocations for that program year to address the priority needs and goals that are identified in the consolidated plan. To achieve cost savings and to optimize community input, staff joined in a collaborative effort and partnered with the Santa Clara County and the other jurisdictions in the county to utilize the same consultant in the development of the draft consolidated plan. So now I'm going to introduce you to Heidi Agler with Rule Policy, who serves as the comp plan consultant for the jurisdiction in the county. She's going to give you an overview of the development of the consolidated plan, and then after she finishes, she's going to hand it back to me, and I'll go over that first year annual action plan and the allocations. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Heidi Agler from Root Policy Research. Our firm was hired to do all of the plans in the county, so we've been working on yours as well as 7 other plans. Sharon talked about what a consolidated plan is. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the primary findings and then talk about the goals. Just for those of you who aren't familiar with a consolidated plan, as Sharon said, this is a HUD requirement. This came about in the mid-90s when HUD had a lot of different reporting requirements. They literally consolidated them into one. That's why it's a consolidated plan. It uses a combination of data and community engagement to come up with priorities and goals that will guide spending in a 5-year period. Most of the way that the city in the past and many cities in the county have used the consolidated plan funds, mostly associated with housing rehabilitation, street and sidewalk improvements, community facility, construction and improvements, and public services. And you can think of those as supportive services. There's a limit on how much of those dollars you can use. That's a HUD limit. 15% of the total dollars can be used for supportive services. Geographically, the city of Gilroy gets these funds directly. Some of your counterparts in the county, they get their funds from the urban county or from Santa Clara County, and so they apply for these funds under the county's umbrella. You do a separate plan along with some of your peers here. A little bit about citizen participation. I just wanted to start by complimenting staff. They did a lot of work to help us get the survey out in the community. And as Sharon said, you had a terrific survey response. Not only did you get a lot of numbers, but you also had a very nice demographic representation of the populations that are of interest, which are generally low to moderate income individuals. A good representation of renters, people who we call who are precariously housed, meaning they're doubling up, they're living in places that are temporary, sleeping quarters. We also had a good share of individuals who were making less than $100,000 a year, good racial and ethnic distribution, good representation of people with and without children. In the 5th bullet here, 27% of the respondents had a disability, and we asked a lot of questions about whether or not their units are accessible or they need accessibility improvements. We had good representation of employment, variety of employment, as well as large families and older adults. This slide here shows you, we ask a question in the survey about what outcomes people would prioritize of these investments. We've divided those by housing and community development. The higher shares are reflecting priorities. So 45% of people responding to the survey said they would prioritize affordable home ownership. That was pretty unique to Gilroy. Most of your other communities emphasize rental over home ownership, but because home ownership is somewhat attainable here relative to some of the other cities in the county, we saw more of a prioritization around home ownership in Gilroy. Affordable rental housing was also a priority, a better distribution of affordable housing, supportive service for those who are unhoused, services for people with disabilities, and increased shelter capacity. So common themes there. In terms of community development, we definitely saw priorities around community centers, youth activities, sidewalk and street improvements, child care centers, very common theme with youth and children, and parks and recreation as well as food. We did a lot of other stakeholder and resident consultation. There were open houses, there were virtual meetings. Gilroy had really strong representation at all of these. We also had a really nice website where you could get information about the plan. In terms of that consultation, so talking independently of the survey, people prioritized youth activities, opportunities to learn new skills, physical and social activities for seniors. Seniors was a really strong population of interest in Gilroy in particular. Opportunities for homeownership, as I've mentioned, supportive services. And then overall in the county and in Gilroy too, there was definitely a call for more coordinated services and resource notification. So people said, sometimes I don't really know where to get help. My friends don't really know where to get help, and I'd like more information about that. So just briefly, primary findings from the needs assessment that is captured in the plan. Cost burden when people pay more than 30% of their income for housing is high among certain groups. Severe cost burden is when people are paying 50% of their income and more. You have about 1,300 people who are severely cost burdened. These are people who we worry about falling into homelessness, getting evicted, falling into foreclosure. We also saw that you have a large share of large family households who are low to moderate income compared to small family households. And so these are populations of interest that you really care about stabilizing. So a couple slides on the strategic plan. These are the proposed goals that would guide investments over the next 5 years. Support and preserve affordable housing. That would include permanent affordable rental housing with services to help stabilize the folks who have the greatest needs, as well as home rehab for low-income residents. And that would include accessibility improvements for people with disabilities. Prevent and reduce homelessness through transitional and shelter housing, particularly for families, more safe parking sites, and supporting safe parking sites as well as providing services. In terms of those public services, really focusing on the special populations of interest and who have the greatest needs, looking at resource navigation center, better connections of people to resources, youth activities, more consistent programming and resources at the senior center, child care, mental health, and services for foster youth, seniors, and people with disabilities. So you see a common theme there of the special populations who have the greatest needs. And last but not least, investing in community development and neighborhood revitalization. That includes a lot of things. CDBG is a really flexible program in this regard. Street, sidewalk, lighting improvements, affordable housing, affordable housing, child care, improvements to park and recreation centers, and public facilities. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to talk about the action plan.
All right, so we're back to talking about the first year of the 5-year comp plan. So here's, for this next year, we are anticipating $400,000 from HUD. And as I mentioned, CDBG funds must be used to implement the priority needs and goals in the comp plan. In addition to the $400,000 for the annual allocation from HUD, we are also estimating we have identified $78,829 in unused CDBG prior year's resources that will be included in this next year's annual action plan. And HUD sets a cap for some of the funding categories. So if you look at the annual allocation of $400,000, the maximum funding for public services is $60,000. That's capped at 15%. The maximum funding for program administration is $80,000, which is capped at 20%. So those are the two column headings. And this leaves $260,000 for non-public services. So through staff efforts, as I mentioned, we identified prior years' unused resources, and this table summarizes really the total funding that's available for public service, non-public service, and program administration. As you heard, the city receives a direct allocation of CDBG funds every year, and so we're responsible for developing a process to disperse funds to the community. To facilitate this process, we conduct public outreach and release a notice of funding availability for every funding cycle that allows applicants and interested parties and nonprofits to directly apply for these funds. And here on the slide, we've listed an outline of the community outreach efforts that we've done this year to allocate CDBG resources. For this phase of the process, our team has also conducted extensive outreach. They've reached out to community organizations through public notices, direct notification to applicants and nonprofits. They've done presentations, and they've also done website postings, social media posting, and also provide hard copies at the City Hall and the library. So after this process, we've received a total of 9 applications. Staff reviewed the applications and all the supporting documents, determined eligibility based on the project description, and conducted HUD research as needed, and analyzed a variety of approaches and options to arrive at the funding recommendations. To facilitate our analysis, we identified the applications either public service or non-public service based on the funding restrictions. The public service grant category, that's the most frequently applied category every year. On the very last page of the agenda packet, which is page 699, you can find a summary of each application's proposed activity, requested funding, and proposed funding. And it's a table that will be too hard to fit on the slide, but you can see it as a snapshot of all the applicants and the funding applied for and recommended for. So now to look at the funding allocation, we'll start with public service applications. Staff received 6 applications total. The funding requests total $76,851. And as we mentioned earlier, based on the estimated $400,000, that will be $60,000 of funding available for public services. And these applications, they're all eligible, so they're all considered in the evaluation. Staff provided 2 options and approaches. The first one we call the equal distribution option. Based on this option, the total amount available will be evenly distributed among the 6 applicants, allowing for the allocation of $10,000 per applicant. Because most applicants request the grant amounts of $10,000 or close to $10,000, this will be the most equitable distribution of funds. This option also provides funds to meet a variety of needs in the community. Therefore, this is staff's recommendation as the preferred option for allocation. Staff also took another approach and called this the evaluation-based option. And staff acknowledges how important all the services are for the community and how deserving all the applications are for the funds. And based on this option and methodology, we will fund the public service applications with the highest evaluations, their full grant request, until funds are exhausted. Under this approach, the top 5 evaluated applications are prioritized, and they will receive their full funding request. And the lowest rated application will receive the remaining funds. So next we'll look at the non-public service applications. We received 3 applications total, and the request total $573,359. And our estimate amount based on the $400,000 annual allocation and the identified unused prior year's resources, that's $338,829. That's funding available. Staff also provided 2 options and approaches. And both of the options include all three non-public service applications because they're all considered eligible for funding. So the first approach we looked at, we called it the proportional distribution option. This option would fund all non-public service applications proportional to the application amount with the funding that's available. This will result in applicants receiving approximately 59% of their requests. This option provides funds to meet a variety of priority needs in the community, and therefore it is staff's recommendation as the preferred option for allocation. Another approach staff looked at is what we call the evaluation-based option. This approach will fund applications with the highest evaluation to full grant request and divide the remaining dollars evenly between the two remaining applications. And on this next slide, as I mentioned, the very last page of your packet, if you just scroll to the very last page, you'll see a table that lists everything where you can see everything in a snapshot. It's just not really possible to fit onto the slide. It will be really small. So here we summarize the results, and that's staff's recommendation. So as I mentioned, staff provided two different options, two options for public services and then two options for non-public services. And this is summarizing the staff recommended option for public service, which is the equal distribution option and the amount for each of the applications, and also summarizing the proportional distribution option for non-public service applications and the amount for each of the applications, and then the $80,000 of program administration, which is the 20% cap based on the annual estimated amount. And council may allocate the funds as you deem appropriate while staying with the maximum percentages, which is those caps required by HUD. And as for fiscal impact, the CDBG resources will be included in the city's budget updates. And as I mentioned, the city's share of costs for the preparation of the comp plan, it's $56,445, and we really achieved cost savings by collaborating with the county and the other jurisdictions in the county to utilize the same consulting services to prepare the comp plan. So this slide is a summary. As mentioned, we have prepared a draft 2025 to 2030 consolidated plan that was developed with extensive community outreach. And as part of the comp plan, we've also prepared the draft 25 to 26 annual action plan. That's the first year of the 5-year plan that implements the goals and needs that are identified. And tonight, staff recommends that the council receive the draft consolidated plan and the annual action plan, receive public comments, and direct staff to proceed with either the preferred funding option, as we mentioned earlier, or any alternative option proposed by the City Council. And as for next steps, upon direction from City Council, staff will update the draft annual action plan to incorporate the funding recommendations. And when HUD releases the actual amount of the formula funds, which is expected to be on May 14th, staff will adjust the proposed allocation for each application proportionally to align with the council direction. And then on June 2nd, staff will return to council for the council to consider approval and adoption of the consolidated plan and annual action plan, which will include the funding allocations. And then after that, staff will be submitting all these documents to HUD. So this is staff's recommendation tonight for council to receive report and public comments on the draft CDBG 2025 to 2030 consolidated plan and program year 2025 to 26 annual action plan, and provide direction on the CDBG program year 25-26 funding allocation. Thank you.
Councilmember Fugazzi.
So on the allocations page, if you could pull that back up, that'd be great. Yes. So when it comes to the ones on the bottom where it talks about sidewalk repair and whatnot, you're saying that you're equally funding those, but we also could have the option to just say, hey, all we want is sidewalk repair. Is that an option?
Council could make that decision, yes.
Okay, and so sidewalk repair, I think I saw in there, and lighting and whatnot are all things that fall into this, right? So if we have, for instance, we have areas in certain parts of town that are pretty, need some help in sidewalks and whatnot, and I saw actually from staff whether or not certain sidewalks aren't going to be improved yet. We need those funds too to help low income when they, if they're homeowners, to be able to fix those sidewalks, and streetlights that are out quite a bit all over. So is there an objection to doing this from your staff to making such a change? Would not be advised, or how do you see it?
Well, as I mentioned, staff kind of reviewed all of the applications and also look at the needs and goals that were identified through the community outreach and listed in the consolidated plan.
So some of the questions in those things were fix our sidewalks and get our streetlights fixed? Were those some of the choices?
Yes, that was in the comp plan presentation, if I can go back. Yes. And, I mean, it's these two slides.
No, my question is that when you had surveys and people said, hey, I'd like to have, cheaper housing, or I'd like to have this, one of the choices was, please fix my sidewalks and my lights in my neighborhood.
I don't know if the survey exactly asked that. Yeah. Yeah, she'll have to look at the exact.
Okay. And the second question that I have is in looking into how CDBG stuff is funded around. I know we've had some public input in recent meetings, again, on the east side, where people are upset because things like alleyways, which happen to be private property, and housing providers and whatnot are not doing what they're supposed to do and whatnot. And I know we have a shortage, and obviously budgeting too, for for having our staff go out and review those things and do what is it your team does to go and review for compliance, right? Code compliance and whatnot. And I know that compliance officers also can be funded through CDBG if they're assigned in such a way. Is that correct?
Code enforcement is an eligible activity. However, based on our past experience, typically only for really large jurisdictions that receive really large amounts, if that makes it feasible, because there's a lot of administrative work involved with those. And I can have our consultant come up to talk about her experience with other jurisdictions too. But just because of this really small amount we receive, that just makes it really challenging and not quite feasible.
Okay, so yeah, definitely like to hear more about that. That's all I have for now.
Would you like to hear more expansion? Okay.
So I've been doing this work for a long time, and I can say I've got one client in Texas that does use all of their CDBG for infrastructure, for public infrastructure, and they pick neighborhoods every year, and they improve actually the water and sewer pipes. That's a pretty common activity for states too. With sidewalks, with activities like code enforcement, economic development, those typically are big city activities. So, cities like San Jose, or I'm not sure, San Jose is not part of this, so I'm not exactly sure how they're spending their money, but Denver, which is one of my long-term clients, they tend to utilize those kinds of activities a little bit more because they've just got more leverage because they get so much funding. So it really depends on. Sidewalks are difficult because they're really costly, and so we typically, sometimes I have clients, smaller, moderate-sized clients that will use money for sort of those big ticket items, but generally I see more along the lines of home rehab services with smaller CDBG allocations.
But we're already doing sidewalks, are we not, with CDBG funds? So why, if we're only using half of it, why wouldn't we use all of it towards that? I mean, that's the question, and again, back to code compliance and whatnot. These are clearly things that people need to have to improve their neighborhoods, and it strikes me, I don't know if this is necessarily a question for you, but maybe it is. I appreciate when 8 people need to have their house redone or what have you, and there's certainly value in that, and I appreciate that. But when you have 8,000 people who could benefit from better sidewalks and lighting and safety and all of this, and if we can make that happen, it seems like a better use of money. That's just my interpretation. And I don't see that. I'm asking basically, is there something codified that would prevent us from doing that, rather than whether or not you've seen it in big or small cities, et cetera?
And I do have a response to your initial question about in the survey. I've got the results here. So we do ask about streets and sidewalks in particular And this is in that outcome slide when we ask about community development outcomes. So new or improved community center was number one, followed by sidewalk and street improvements, and then rec centers. So that was definitely elevated, but they're only within 2 percentage points of each other. So I would say they're sort of equal in terms of weight. One comment on code enforcement, I would say that and economic development are particularly administratively burdensome, and so I would ask, or I would recommend asking your HUD contact about what that sort of entails, just in terms of the admin side of things.
Burdensome meaning, like if we were to assign one of them just a particular region and we were able to define that and say this particular code enforcement officer only works in this particular district or whatever it may be, however we define it.
Yeah, the question is whether or not that's a qualifying like geographic area or district,
Right.
and whether and the record keeping that you have to keep to demonstrate that this code officer only was serving this population and that's
Sure.
an eligible area. That's
Sure.
that's my
Got it.
That's what I would say. What I think is administratively burdensome.
But there's record keeping on all of this money, so, correct? Regardless if it
depending on
goes to a
the activities.
nonprofit organization or to our own code enforcement, there's still record keeping.
That's true. I would say the HUD's requirements really vary by grant
Right.
and by activity. There's oftentimes not a lot of consistency across the record keeping that they require by different activity type, if that makes sense.
So I have a couple of questions about the administrative. Was this consultant fee part of that $80,000? So we only have like, the $54,000 or $56,000 that was spent on this women's organization. Last slide. Or second to last slide, towards the end. Right there. So the consolidated plan, $56,000.
Yes.
Does that come from the $80,000 administrative fee, or does that come from just city coffers?
No, it has to come from city coffers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then with this $80,000 administrative fee, do we hire someone that manages this whole CDBG program in terms of the outreach and all of that stuff, the monitoring and the collection of the reporting and all of that stuff, or is that just assumed by existing staff and the $80,000 goes into that?
Yeah, it's mainly existing staff that's doing that, but we have a consultant who is providing really technical assistance. For example, some of the kind of legal HUD regulation, those type of questions. So we use the $80,000 to fund that, and then if there's any remainder, then staff would charge time to that.
So one thing that I felt was missing from this report was previous funding. Who was funded and how much? How many of these are repeat, grantees over and over? And what is the dollar amount that is typically given? So, for example, are we, constantly funding the same organizations over and over again? And is that typical?
Because this is the beginning of the 5-year, and that's why we did not provide that, but we can certainly, research that and share that with the council. Just, in the last 2.5 years I've been here, I've seen primarily the same, but, there's a variety of organizations. But even the last 2 years, they were slightly different than what you're seeing today.
And then I know that you got feedback and stuff like that, but did you have any kind of a citizen group look at the applications and make recommendations to as far as the applications were concerned about whether the different types of funding models that you're proposing?
I know staff evaluated the application.
Staff did that.
Based on,
Okay,
yes,
that was
and based
not-
on criteria that we had listed in the application packet.
And I just want to make sure I'm asking all my questions. So how many of the applicants also get funded from the Housing Trust? Do you know?
Yeah, I think the city stopped doing allocation process for the Housing Trust Fund several years ago.
Okay. Okay.
if I may circle back to Councilmember Fugazi, so let me go back to that slide under the comp plan. Under the second bullet point, that was one of the identified goals too. So that's why when staff evaluated all the applications, that application was meeting this goal. And this program also would help the city meet one of the housing element programs.
So you're saying that the fixing of these houses falls into this prevent and reduce homelessness section? Is that what you're saying?
No, sorry. The second bullet point, home rehabilitation
Oh, that
for
one,
low
yes.
income, for safety and accessibility improvements.
Yeah, I see that.
I have a follow-up comment to Councilmember Ramirez's question about some of these organizations. To my recollection is, so I was on the Housing Neighborhood Revitalization Committee before it was stopped. And almost every single committee organization that you guys are suggesting that we give money to have been part of this program for years, even before I was on this program. So if you're wondering, are these new folks, do we know how they comply and do those type of things? They've been around for a very long time, including that one big distribution of Silicon Valley
Rebuilding Together.
Yeah, thank you. We've been funding them for years, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So for 6 or 7 years, sorry.
I didn't mean to imply that they were not in compliance
No.
or.
Yeah, I
anything like
didn't think that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know that they've been around a while. They have a history of performing, I believe.
No, I'm very familiar with all these,
Yeah.
but, and they are definitely above board.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I can just mention, based on my past experience, you typically see, kind of a primary group of nonprofits that apply for CDBG, because there is a lot of documentation involved, a lot more than some other grants. So usually, once they have the experience, they tend to be the ones, that will apply to every jurisdiction for CDBG funding.
Okay, we'd like to move to public comment.
Yes, Mayor Council, we have 3 speakers. First is Oliveira Poblano, followed by Larissa Cortez.
This is Ollie, and she's going to be presenting in Spanish.
Yeah, go ahead, speak closer, please.
This is Ollie, and she's going to be presenting in Spanish.
And then lower it for her. There you go.
If you could just give me one moment, I can switch it over to English for translation. Just one moment.
Buenas noches. Buenas noches, miembros del Consejo de la Ciudad. Mi nombre es Oliveria Poblano y soy residente de Gilroy. Estoy aquí para apoyar al plan consolidado del año 25-30 y el plan de acción anual 25-26, destacando los beneficios económicos que estos planes pueden traer a nuestra comunidad. La vivienda asequible no solo es una necesidad básica, sino también una inversión en el futuro económico de Gilroy. Actualmente el 47.6% de los hogares que alquilan en Gilroy están gastando entre el 30% y el 50% de sus ingresos en vivienda, y el 81% gastan más del 50%, cuando las familias no tienen que gastar una gran parte de sus ingresos en vivienda, tienen más recursos para invertir en educación, salud y otras áreas que impulsan el crecimiento económico. Además, la vivienda asequible puede entrar a trabajadores y empresas, fortaleciendo nuestra economía local. La falta de vivienda asequible también contribuye a la falta de hogar, lo cual tiene un costo económico significativo para nuestra comunidad en el 23, el 75% de la población sin hogar en el condado de Santa Clara, que incluye Gilroy, no tenía refugio. Al reducir la falta de hogar, podemos disminuir los gastos en servicios de emergencia y mejorar la calidad de vida de todos los residentes. Le pido al Consejo de la Ciudad adoptar estos planes y asignar los fondos de manera estratégica para maximizar estos beneficios económicos. Gracias por su tiempo y consideración.
Thank you. Next speaker is Larissa Cortez, followed by Yesenia Ochoa.
Hi, my name is Larissa Cortez, and I volunteer with a nonprofit organization, and I have heard from a lot of individuals in our community firsthand that they are borderline going to poverty and will most likely become homeless in the future, which is why I strongly support this plan. I believe that a lot of, we can't help the people who are already homeless, but we can definitely make a difference in helping those who are on the border of becoming homeless. A lot of the individuals we do see are living in RVs, are living in parks, outside commercial buildings, and I feel like that's really like taking from our community to where a lot of like even members of our community rather go somewhere else where it's much nicer than stay here in our community, because we do see a lot of just homeless, just living out in the parks or anything like that, so you really don't want to be pretty much going to a store at night and then there's like a homeless person outside. Yeah, so I strongly support this plan. I believe it's really important just to keep those individuals who are looking to have like a place to stay where rent is much more affordable, especially with no rent control in Gilroy. I believe a lot of individuals who are in our community complain about renters really spiking the rent, like a big difference. So I really do strongly approve for this plan. That's going to be it. Thank you for your guys' time.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Yesenia Ochoa.
Buenas noches, miembros del Consejo de la Ciudad. Mi nombre es Yesenia Ochoa y vino a mi mente lo importante acerca de la vivienda asequible para la comunidad. Cuando mi mamá tuvo una mala experiencia en el 2021, ella redujo su trabajo, entonces tuvo que, para tener ese apoyo, rentó un cuarto y tuvo una mala experiencia, que tuvo que ir a corte y muchas cosas. Fue algo muy estresante, muy triste. Soy residente de Gilroy. Hoy quiero hablar sobre la importancia del Plan Consolidado 2025-2030 y el Plan de Acción Anual 2025-2026 y cómo estos planes pueden transformar nuestra comunidad. La vivienda asequible es una necesidad urgente en Gilroy. Con el salario mínimo local de $16 por hora, muchas familias están luchando para pagar la vivienda y otros gastos esenciales. Es fundamental que la vivienda asequible sea verdaderamente accesible para todos los residentes. Esto no solo alivia el estrés financiero, es lo que le pasó a mi mamá. Tuvo que pasar por ese proceso difícil de no saber ni a dónde buscar la ayuda para poder sobrellevar lo que la conllevó solamente para rentar un cuarto y tratar de ayudarse, sino que también mejorará la calidad de vida y la estabilidad económica de nuestra comunidad. Además, la falta de vivienda asequible contribuye a la falta de hogar. El conteo de punto en el tiempo de 2023 mostró que una gran parte de nuestra población sin hogar no tiene refugio. Necesitamos más viviendas asequibles para reducir la falta de hogar y proporcionar un entorno seguro y estable para todos. La asignación de los fondos SCVE debe ser estratégica y basada en las necesidades reales de nuestra comunidad. Es esencial que estos fondos se utilicen para apoyar proyectos que realmente beneficien a los residentes de Gilroy, especialmente en términos de vivienda asequible y servicios comunitarios. Otra cosa que se me olvidó mencionar, que mi mamá está rentando ahorita una casa, pero cada vez que ella pide que le arreglen algo necesario, por ejemplo, el baño, el dueño de la casa le manda la carta diciéndole que le va a aumentar la renta simplemente por pedir que le compongan el baño. En resumen, insto al Consejo de la Ciudad a adoptar el Plan Consolidado 2025-2030 y el Plan de Acción Anual 2025-2026. Estos planes son cruciales para construir un Gilroy más inclusivo y equitativo. Gracias por su tiempo y consideración.
Thank you. We have no further speakers at this time. Let's take the
Yeah,
back.
go
We have
ahead.
one more speaker.
Sure, go ahead.
I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm impartial here, but there were a couple errors in the translation there. It said, Oli did not say housing is affordable. She said affordable housing isn't just a basic need, it's an investment in Gilroy's economic future. I feel like those are very different things. And I forget her name, but un cuarto means one room. So if that was a confusing translation, that will maybe help you understand their comments.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that completes our speakers.
All right. So back to staff. Any further questions from council to staff? So we're looking for some direction here this evening. So anybody interested?
I think we have a huge need for some of these infrastructure things, and my personal feeling is I would like to see that maximized. I hate to take it away from some other kind of program, but we have had public input on that, and I do see it, especially again on the east side, where it's not been addressed, and we've heard public comment of them saying they're feeling like they're left behind in some of this. It seems to apply, but I may be alone in that, but that's how I feel.
I understand where you're coming from, and also when it comes to sidewalks, like we've been talking about, we hear it at Coffee with Mayor, we hear it a lot, and it's something that's very easy to connect to spending dollars. So I understand your comment on that. I do also believe that, as I said before, these folks have, some of these organizations have been doing good work in Gilroy for a very long time, also on the east side. So that would be my comment. Go ahead, Councilmember Ramirez.
So I just am trying to get clarity. Are you suggesting, can I see your cheat? You printed it out, thank you. The allocation, are you recommending that in the non-public service that all of the funds go to the city of Gilroy rather than distributing them to the other two entities as well?
That's correct, and specifically toward, and however we can do that here as council, toward the areas of our city that are in the most need, and also the low-income areas of the city. And because it also, and again, I know it's not a huge amount when you consider all of what this stuff takes, but we do have some lighting issues as well that might be wanting to be included in there for the most dramatic versions of that. But yes, that is exactly what I'm saying.
So that 829.31, you're proposing that all of that goes to the city of Gilroy, and then what would you, if that was like a motion you were making, would you do with the public service, would you do the equal distribution or the...
Yeah, I think the equal distribution is fine. I don't see any issue with that one.
Just, thank you, I just wanted clarity.
Further comments? Well, would you like to make a motion on that, or are you looking for more
Yeah,
feedback from
I'll
council?
move to instruct staff to maximize or put the entire amount of funding in the non-public service into revitalizing streets and lighting in the lower income areas of town, specifically east of Monterey and south of Leavesley, where it's most needed. Yes, and the public service part to be equally distributed as instructed by staff's recommendation.
So I have a motion and a second. See if I can get this right. For the public service allocation to remain the same. For the non-public service allocation, is that the correct word?
I think what you want to say is for the public service allocations to be equally distributed at $10,000 each.
For the public service application to be equally distributed at $10,000 each as recommended. And the non-public service applications, the $155,639 to be applied to the Public Works program. So I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bracco.
Yes.
Councilmember Klein.
Yes.
Councilmember Fugazi.
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton.
Aye.
Councilmember Marks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Yes.
Mayor Bozo.
No. Motion passes 6-1. Okay. I believe since we did items 11, 12, and 13 earlier, that concludes this meeting at 9:53, the open session proportion anyway. So we will now move into closed session. Thank you, everybody. And
well, we have to announce the closed session and do it.
Okay.
Shall I do that?
Take us away.
It's important. There are two closed sessions. First is conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, Gilroy City Code 17A88. Property is 7257 Monterey Street. Negotiators are Jimmy Forbes and Sharon Goey. Other party to negotiations is Rig 1 LLC, and under negotiation of price and terms of payment. The second one is public employee appointment or employment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, Gilroy City Code 17A11-2. Name or title is Police Chief. So the appropriate thing now to do is first see if there's any public comment.
We have no speakers this time.
Okay, in that case, we can go into closed session. The first item in closed session is to take a vote to stay in closed session, and that's a reportable action.
Okay, am I looking for a roll call then?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay, everybody okay? We're going into closed session.